Story 1. Finally, I exposed my brother's secrets after he cheated on my BFF and turned everyone against me for trying to tell her the truth. Now, he's cut out of the will, and his fiancée left him at the altar. So, I, 26F, have an older brother. He is 3 years older than me and is pretty much the golden child of the family, and with good reason. He is definitely above average. He is a neurosurgeon and works in one of the top medical institutes in the state, so I guess it's fair that my parents are super proud of him and constantly keep bragging about him whenever possible. Sometimes, even when it's not possible, they manage to steer the conversation towards him just because they love him so much. In comparison, I'm not that great. I work in advertising and it's a decent job. It pays well and I can afford a nice life for myself, but obviously when you have a son who is a neurosurgeon, that's not enough to compare. So they like to play up my brother's achievements so they don't have to talk about me. I wish I could say that this has been a recent development, but they have always been like this ever since we were kids. He was always the star and I was sidelined for the most part. He was a much better student than I was, and not only was he academically better than me, but he was also a great athlete and also dabbled in art occasionally. There was literally nothing that he couldn't do. I was supremely jealous of him and would constantly try to outdo him, but I was never able to. As a result, I was miserable for as long as he was at home. I only really came into my own as a person after he left for medical school. After high school ended, I realized that there was more to life than just wasting it trying to compete with somebody because I wanted my parents to brag about me as well. So, I cut myself some slack and tried to actually enjoy my life instead of trying to outdo my brother, because it just didn't seem worth it anymore. I was much happier after that, but my parents thought that I was being lazy and started comparing me to my brother even harder because I did not constantly stay in my room, cooped up and trying to study so I could score better than my brother. But their strategy did not work after that because now that I knew I could actually be my own person instead of making my brother the basis of my identity, I did not have any intention of going back to that life, no matter what that meant. My grades were not even affected that badly, so it was all fine. I just stopped trying to take part in every event and put myself through the hardest of challenges just to impress my parents. They did not like that, and they didn't bother to hide it either. It was very obvious to me that they would rather have two high-achieving kids who were constantly competing with each other than genuinely care about our happiness or how we turned out as people. So that's my parents for you guys. In case you guys were thinking that maybe my brother did not encourage the competition and the unhealthy sibling rivalry, you guys are wrong. He was the worst of the worst, and he made me feel even smaller whenever he could. He was constantly putting me down, and that's why I was always trying to defeat him. I guess I just wanted something that I was better than him at, and I still haven't found that one thing, but I'm okay with it now. But I was far from okay about this back then, and I made myself miserable trying to beat him out for something. He just kept winning, and he would rub it in my face all the time. He left no stone unturned to remind me that our parents would always prefer him over me, and it was just so toxic. It was a horrible environment to grow up in, and I hated my brother. I still do, don't get me wrong, but after both of us went our separate ways in life, I guess we sort of made peace with each other for a little while for the sake of the family. After I left for college, I kind of just stopped caring about what my parents thought of me at all and just wanted to live my life on my own terms. I still kept in touch with them, but that was more out of obligation than out of love. Both my brother and I had simmered down considerably after we left home, so whenever we would meet each other, like on the holidays or when the family would get together, we would be civil to each other. We were not friends by any means, but at least we were not constantly trying to one-up each other, which was a huge improvement from how we used to act earlier. The two of us had changed as people, but my parents did not. Unfortunately, they continued to brag about my brother any time that they could and made me sound like a total loser, which was just really annoying all the time. But I couldn't exactly confront them about it without sounding petty and jealous, so I would always try to tune them out and pretend like they did not say the things that they would say so it would not bother me. I just wanted to avoid any sort of drama with my family, so I never said anything about the way they would behave and would pit my brother and me against each other. I could have said a lot of things and shut them up forever if I wanted to, trust me, but I consciously chose not to do that. I had a lot of dirt on all of them, my brother and my parents, but I never told them because it would just lead to unnecessary trouble for all of us, and I did not want to engage. So, I stayed silent about everything for years. It was not that I did not have a spine or the guts to speak out, I just didn't do any of it by choice because they were just annoying. But the kind of secrets that I knew about them could ruin their lives and reputations, and I did not want to do that because that would be a little too harsh. Call me what you want, but I didn't think it would be fair. For instance, I knew that my brother had been part of a pretty big scandal when he was in high school. He had been stalking a girl in his grade after she had rejected him, and that had been going on for months before she finally broke down and complained to her father about it, who then pressed charges against my brother because he had also been harassing her online and threatening to ruin her application if she did not agree to go out with him. My parents were able to hush the whole thing up because, thankfully, my family was pretty influential. But it was a huge deal because everybody knew about it in high school, but it blew over quickly because there are always other scandals to move on to. And he also had a brief addiction to painkillers during his residency when he was recovering from an ankle fracture. My parents went to great lengths to cover all of it up and make sure that nobody ever found out about any of that, and they did a pretty good job because nobody even remembers any of it except for me, of course. And it was just taken for granted that I would never speak up about any of this. I also knew certain things about my parents that I'm sure they would never want anybody else to know. Like, I knew that my dad had an affair with his secretary who was barely 22, and he was almost in his late 40s when it happened. My mother had found out about it and had threatened to leave him if he did not fire the secretary, and he had to do what she asked because he did not want a divorce and had to let her go. But he also had to pay her a huge amount of hush money and make her sign an NDA to make sure she didn't talk about it because that would open the company up to lawsuits. All of them had skeletons in their closets that I knew about, but I did not speak about it because I thought that it was not necessary, and I did not want to destroy them. It was pretty foolish of my parents to treat me like that knowing that I knew about the secrets that they had hidden from everyone for so long, but it did come out eventually, recently. Because my brother is a disgusting human being. A couple of years ago, he started dating a friend of mine. I had just recently moved into a new and bigger apartment and hosted a housewarming party for everyone. My friend and I had met each other at work at my previous job, and we were pretty close, so when I found out that my brother had asked her out at my party, I was kind of skeptical, and I even warned her about the kind of person that my brother was because I did not want her to get hurt, and I knew that my brother was kind of a jerk when it came to women. But she seemed to really like him, so nothing that I said would get through to her. It worked out well for a while because they had been together for almost 4 years and got engaged at the beginning of this year. We had been friends even though my brother and I did not get along, but she was happy with him, and I really thought that he had changed for her sake because every time that she spoke about him, she had nothing negative to say, and she made him sound like a perfect guy. So, I thought that maybe my personal issues with him did not affect his ability to be a good partner to the one that he loved, and I was happy for her. But a couple of days ago, I'd say maybe 12 days, I found out that he had been cheating on her with his coworker. It was not a fling. It was a full-blown affair that he was having, and it had been going on for the past 2 years. They had been meeting in private, and he had promised her that he would break things off with my friend and get with her. But when he got engaged, his coworker realized that he was not serious and it was all just a joke to him. She had broken up with him a couple of days after he got engaged, but he was still trying to get with her after that and inviting her to places so they could hook up. She was so disgusted by all of it that she decided that she was going to get back at him before she left her position since she had found a better opportunity and was quitting in a couple of days. She knew that talking to his parents would not help because they worship him, and she was on the spot about that. She also did not want to speak to my friend directly because she couldn't bring herself to do that. She was so ashamed of herself. So, she was reaching out to me because she knew that I did not get along with my brother and sent me all the proof that I needed to make sure that my friend got to know the truth and told me that now I was free to do whatever I wanted. Even if I didn't say anything, she would be fine with it because at least she got it off her chest. And then she blocked me from the account that she had contacted me through and everywhere else, so I could not even get back to her. But I already had everything that I needed. I just had to think about whether I wanted to tell my friend the truth or not. And it was not a hard choice, really. I knew that I had to tell her about the affair because she was a really sweet girl, and she deserved better. I had also known that everything about the way that my friend perceived my brother seemed too good to be true, and it actually was. It was not like I was going to relish the experience of having to be the bearer of bad news, but somebody had to tell her. And since it was not going to be my brother's affair partner, and he himself would never tell her the truth, I decided that I would have to be the one to do it for her. It was a huge deal because I was putting my friendship with her at stake since I did not know if she would still want to keep in touch with me after she found out that my brother had been cheating on her. But I thought that I had to do it because it was the right thing to do, and I could not let her suffer like that because my brother had cheated once, and I knew that there was nothing that could stop him from doing it again and again. So, if not his coworker, he would just find somebody else to sleep with behind my friend's back, and he would never leave her either because there is something wrong with him just like everybody else who cheats. After thinking about it for a couple of days, I decided to invite her over for lunch and then break the news to her. I did it as nicely as I could, but the news that I was delivering to her was still devastating, and no amount of sugarcoating would ever change that. When I showed her all the screenshots and told her everything that my brother's coworker had told me, she seemed to be in disbelief for a while. She was in denial and kept saying that there must have been some mistake because my brother would never do this to her, and she knew that he loved her. But I had to tell her that it was the truth, and then she started crying, and I think I have never seen anybody break down like that. It was heartbreaking and really difficult for me to watch because she was a really good friend of mine, but my brother had broken her in the worst way possible, and I really hated him for it. So, I tried my best to be there for her, and I told her that if she wanted somebody to talk to, I would always be there, just one phone call away. Then she went home so she could confront my brother about this. This was just 1 week ago, and the wedding is supposed to happen in less than a month, so there is a sense of urgency in the situation right now. I expected her to call me back and tell me everything that was going on after she went back home, but that phone call never even came. And all of a sudden, I realized that she had blocked me on social media, and I had no way to get through to her. That was really shocking because I thought I was doing her a favor by telling her the truth about my brother. And here she was blocking me out. I tried to contact her from different accounts for a couple of days, but it did not work. She just blocked whatever new account I would create and was refusing to pick up my calls. And it wasn't even just her. I had been blocked by a couple of other relatives as well, and some people had even started to reach out to me and tell me that I was really wrong for trying to ruin their relationship just a few weeks before their wedding. I had absolutely no idea what was going on and what they had been telling people about me, and neither did I have any other way to contact her or my brother or even my parents because they had all blocked me. So, I did the only thing that occurred to me and decided to go to her workplace and wait for her to come out so we could talk. About 4 days ago, during my own lunchtime, I went to my previous office, and I waited for her to come out because I knew that she usually gets lunch from a nearby restaurant. As soon as she came out, I decided to confront her because I needed to know what was going on. She was shocked to see me, but when she recovered, she put on this really cold face and told me to leave because she did not want anything to do with me anymore. I was very confused by this behavior because I had assumed that I had done something good for her, and I was not going to leave without an answer. So, I told her that I was not going anywhere and she absolutely had to tell me what was going on because what she was doing here was absolutely wrong. Then she finally turned around and told me that the reason she did not want to speak to me anymore was because she knew that I was trying to ruin her relationship with my brother on purpose because I was jealous of him. Now that she knew the truth, she was not going to let me come in between them and ruin their relationship. She told me that she did not trust me one bit after she had come to know the things that I had done in the past, referring to things that I didn't even do. And I am sure that my brother had said those lies to her to manipulate her against me, so she did not believe whatever I had told her about his affair and stuff. And she was even gullible enough to fall for all of it and believe what he was saying instead of what I was telling her even though I had hard proof. I was really pissed off by the way that she was treating me like I was some idiot and I could never reach the level of my brother, so I was trying to drag him down by ruining his relationship just a few weeks before his marriage. I knew that my brother had turned her against me, and she was not going to believe anything that I was going to tell her because she had made up her mind about who she was going to believe, and it was not me. So, I did not waste any more of my time trying to talk to her because it was her life, and she could destroy it in whichever way she chose to. I was really upset and almost on the verge of tears because I had really thought that I was doing a good thing, but it had backfired, and now I had lost a friend just because of my brother. I was massively pissed off as well because he had told her a bunch of lies about me, and she had even believed it since she wanted to believe that the man she was marrying was a good person. He had basically told her that I had edited and created all those screenshots on my own just because I wanted to sabotage him. And apparently, this was not even my first time trying to do something like this, because I had also done things like this in the past with his previous girlfriends and told them all so many lies about him that they ended up leaving. This is what he had told my friend, and she had chosen to be with him. Fine, then she could be with him. But I was not going to tolerate the fact that he had ruined my friendship with someone I considered close just because he wanted to cover up his own affair. And then I did something to get back at him, which everybody is mad at me about because they think that I should have just let it go. So what I did was not a nice thing. I'll admit that I definitely did it out of anger and wanted to get revenge on my brother for every little thing that he had put me through all through these years. I was sick of silently dealing with everything and consoling myself by telling myself that I was being the bigger person and letting them live in peace. Well, that was not going to happen anymore because I was finally going to speak up about all the secrets that I had been keeping to myself, because at the end of the day, they were my family, and I did not want to do anything that I could not take back. But at this point, I did not care anymore. So, on the evening of the day that I decided to confront my friend about why she was ignoring me, after she told me off, I was very upset and I made a post. In that post, I included all the secrets that I had kept to myself for all these years that I have mentioned above and made sure to explain everything in great detail. I even made my account public just for this purpose, so it was very well thought out and definitely not in the heat of the moment. I talked about my brother's addiction to painkillers in his past and how he had creeped a girl out by stalking her for months after she said no to going out with him. I also talked about my father's affair with his secretary and how they had to fire her because my mother was not happy about it. But she still continued to stay with him and pretended like the whole thing never happened because she had nowhere else to go. And of course, being rich and staying with a cheating husband was better than being on your own and poor. Everybody in the family was now blaming me and refusing to talk to me, treating me like a pariah. I was aware of the fact that this was all his doing, and I was really angry that he thought he could do this to me and get away with it. So, I typed that post out and put it out there for everyone to read. I personally don't regret it, but people have been coming up to me after that and telling me that I took it too far because this could ruin my brother's life and career, not just his marriage. I don't understand how that's any of my business, because all I did was expose the truth so that people would really get to know how my parents and my brother were instead of the rosy image that they portray in public. I really don't think that I did anything wrong because I had been keeping this to myself for almost my entire life up until this point. But they just kept pushing and pushing me, so now I was left with no choice but to expose them for what they really are. And I don't regret it. But a couple of my more lenient friends and family members who didn't block me or turn against me because of my brother now think that I should take the post down since this is serious. I don't think that I need to take the post down, but I also don't want to completely disregard what these people are saying because they were the only ones on my side before this. So, AITA for making a post that could ruin my family's life after they manipulated everybody to turn against me? Update 1. I have made my decision, and unfortunately, it's not going to be in favor of my family. I have decided that I'm not going to take the post down no matter what. If they did not want that information to come out in such a nasty way, they shouldn't have messed with me. They knew that I knew these things, and yet they just took me for granted and continued to mistreat me for years on end. What did they even expect? Did they really think that I was just going to put up with that for the rest of my life and let them get away with whatever they wanted? Yeah, that's not happening. The only reason I was even considering taking that post down was because I thought I was being very harsh, but reading the comments made me realize that I probably wasn't being hard enough on them, and anybody else in my position would have leaked the secrets way long ago because nobody would be willing to put up with this sort of disrespect for no reason. But I did put up with it for a really long time because I did not want to ruin their lives. However, now it's a different story. I don't care what happens to them or what the repercussions of this are. I'm just done being the good girl and thinking about my family and their life. They never thought about my mental health and how I would feel about the things that they said and did. Then why should I? We are still all on talking terms. They have not abandoned me like I thought they would if I said that I was not going to take the post down. I explained my feelings, and they seemed to understand where I was coming from. So that is sorted out for now, and I have nothing to worry about. Nobody from my family has reached out yet, and I guess they are too busy trying to save face after the kind of secrets that have been exposed about them. Good, this will keep them busy for a while. Update 2. I just heard from a couple of people that the wedding has been called off. I really couldn't be happier. My friend has not reached out to me, but well, at least she's out of that relationship now. I think I did the right thing. I have no regrets. It has been almost a week and a half since I made that post, and relatives of mine have been unblocking me left and right and trying to talk to me, probably to get more gossip. But I have been blocking them now. My only goal with that post was to make my family realize just how much of a favor I was doing to them. I did not intend to carry this on because this was pointless and really negative. Whatever I wanted to do, I had accomplished it, and now it's time to move on. Update 3. So, my parents wrote an email to me and said that they were going to cut me off forever. They were also changing their will and making sure that I was not included in it because I had let them down for one last and final time. They also told me that my brother had been placed on administrative leave with pay because the rumors flying around about him were crazy and it was not looking too good for his career at the moment. I'm not sure what that has to do with me. I just spoke my truth. If he did not want to get into trouble, then he probably should have been more upfront and transparent about his response, but well, that's just how they roll, I guess. Secrets and lies are totally their thing. I'm just glad that I'm officially no longer part of the family. I would hate to be a part of a family like that anyway. They told me that in a couple of days, I would be receiving a call from their lawyer and how I would know that I had been cut out of their will, as if that makes a difference to me. They can cut me out of anywhere they want to. I hardly care about it. Update 4. Hi guys. So it has been a couple of weeks since the wedding got called off. I have also been officially disinherited by my parents. I received a call from their lawyer a couple of days ago. It doesn't matter, though. I'm cool with it. I am leading a nice life, and I have good friends who care about me. That's all that I could ask for. Speaking of friends, my brother's ex-fiancée and my old friend, she recently reached out to me yesterday and told me that she was really sorry for not trusting me and thanked me for everything that I did for her. She told me that she was moving away because she just couldn't live here anymore and was done with everything. So, she wanted to meet one last time before she left, and I think I'm going to do it. She's not a bad person, but she just fell in love with one, and that's not her fault. I just hope she finds happiness at some point. She's a good woman, and she deserves to be happy. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Anonymous message revealed my boyfriend of 6 years was secretly filming OnlyFans content with his friend while gaslighting me. So I, 24F, have been with my 25M boyfriend for 6 years. 6 years we have built a life together, grown together, done everything together. He recently had to move away for a job and I have felt uneasy about the move. He also happened to make friends with a girl, 20SF. I guess you can see where this is going. I have felt uncomfortable with their friendship from the start. We have argued about her. I made him unfollow her. I have gone through their messages, and the whole time he has gaslit me, called me controlling, and painted me as insane and insecure to both our families. It has caused great emotional distress to me and strained my relationship with his mother, which used to be great. Through all his gaslighting, I even went to therapy to understand why I felt so awful about him being friends with this girl, whether it was unresolved issues around the move, the physical distance between us, the fact that she sort of looks like another girl who had caused problems for us, etc. My boyfriend is also very good-looking and very much into training, has a very chiseled body, gets a lot of attention, etc. I also get a lot of attention, but I am a more private person and go out less, so I get it nowhere near as much as him, despite us being comparatively equal looks-wise. So after about 2 months of therapy, I get a DM on Instagram. It's a throwaway/alt account, no followers. It's a screen recording of this girl's OnlyFans. I didn't even know she had an account. It's not under her real name or attached to any of her socials. But I can see her face and know it's her. And she's doing content with my boyfriend. His face isn't in it, but I know his body. I know what he looks like, the noises he makes, the way he does stuff. I've been with him for 6 years. There's a video of her giving him head, a video of her taking back shots, a bunch of lewd nudes of both of them, a bunch of graphic pictures of facials, just so much stuff. All in all, it's like a 7-minute-long screen recording. No message was sent with it, just the recording. I have no idea who it was or why they sent it. The OnlyFans account is only a month old. He moved away the start of January. I don't know how long they've been having sex for or how the hell they progressed to doing OnlyFans together. But it's insane. 6 years thrown away for a girl he's known for a few months, and to do it in such an egregious way, to be blatant enough to film himself and put it on the internet. It's disgusting. Painting me out to be insane, making me go to therapy, ruining my reputation within both our families. The whole time he's been lying and filming himself cheating on me. He has been spending more money than usual, going away, traveling, partying, going to restaurants with his new friends, buying designer clothes, etc. I was under the impression he was working a lot, but nope. Probably just got some extra cash doing corn with some effing tramp. I hate him so much. He's a piece of shit. I hate what he did to me and us. I want to just post the screen recording in our joint family group chat. Let them all know I'm not crazy, he's just a piece of shit. I guess this is revenge porn. I mean, it's already on the internet, posted willingly. I don't even know if I care. I want him to suffer. I want him to hurt, to feel humiliated. I hate him. Edit. I'm going to bed, and as it's been said 1000x, I'm just going to let you all know I googled it, and under law where I live it isn't under the umbrella of revenge porn as it was willingly posted to the internet by him himself. It is considered copyright infringement at worst but is a civil matter, not criminal. And even then, I didn't actually leak the content, whoever sent it to me did. He might be able to get me on copyright laws, but like I said, that would be a civil matter. The worst I'd get is a fine, if even that. Still, I'll see how I feel in the morning. Some relevant info. 1. Did you ever have any idea he had cheated? I had no idea he cheated, ever. I had one girl he used to work with at his last job, the one who looks like she could be a twin of this current girl, message me and claim she was effing him, but she had literally no proof, not a single text, not a photo, not a screenshot, not a phone call record, nor a single person willing to corroborate what she said. He had a plethora of work colleagues tell me the girl was obsessed with him and a little crazy and most likely lying. I chose to believe my boyfriend of, at the time, 5 years. She ended up quitting work and moving 80+ miles away, with her reputation in ruins and everyone at their job treating her like she had the plague. That poor woman was probably looking out for me, and I was so horrible to her. 2. This all happened very quickly. How did you get a therapist so soon? I had already had a therapist who I had been with for 3 years. I felt like I was in a good place mentally to say goodbye to her in December. I got back in touch mid-January when I felt my mental health deteriorating again. I honestly have no idea if I'm actually severely mentally ill or if I have just been psychologically tortured by this piece of human shit. 3. You seem a little unhinged, you sure you're not crazy? I have always had some mild OCD as well as fairly bad anxiety, hence me going out much less than him. That is what he used to paint me as insane. When I say he gaslit me, I mean it in the purest definition of the word. He literally used my history of mental suffering to paint me as literally insane. Oh, it's your OCD, you're ruminating about this girl. Your anxiety is getting really bad. It's just because I'm not around, stuff like that. 4. Why would you want to subject his family to that? I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in pain. I have never felt rage like that. It would have been wrong even if he deserved it, which he absolutely did. F him, they did not. 5. How can you be certain she knows about you? She could also be a victim? LOL LMAO even. No, she's a f***ing piece of shit. Home wrecking beach who deserves the worst. I am listed as in a relationship with him on his social media, which she follows. She purposefully did not accept my own follow requests, probably because she has been posting in there too. Oh, and I also found her Twitter, which isn't private, and she has been liking tweets about sneaky links and that sort of stuff for around a month now, which was fueling my instincts. 3 days ago, she liked a tweet saying, "Why is sex so much better when it's with someone it's not supposed to be with?" She is a literal effing tramp and proud of it. Date 1. So I slept on it. Woke up about 2 hours ago to him posting holiday pictures in the family GC right now. I had my suspicions, but I got my cousin to follow the girl on IG. She is private, and she just so happens to be in the same country he is right now. LMFAO, what a coincidence. Yep, they're both in Paris as we speak. How romantic. I did what many Redditors suggested. I used a text template made by one of you. Thank you so much, because if I had tried to send that text, I'd have come across as unhinged. I said, "Hello guys. I've recently had a video leaked to me that shows X having sex and performing various other intimate acts with another woman. I didn't think it would be appropriate to share such a video here, but I will provide it as asked. This woman specifically is the one I had been concerned about for a while, and we was actually all led to think I was crazy for suspecting that something more was going on between them. It's distressing to find out that I was right. I'm sad that X could do something so disgusting, and I'm sad that I didn't trust my gut. Despite us being together 6 years, this man has shown himself to be an utterly vile human being who has betrayed my trust and hurt me deeply. I was committed to him whilst he was sneaking around behind my back and calling me insecure for my gut instincts. He twisted the knife again and tried to ruin my reputation with you all whilst knowing he wasn't telling the truth the entire time. This is the end, and I want you all to know why, in case he decides to lie again. Also, he is most likely with her in Paris as we speak, as I've had someone follow the girl, and they just so happen to be in the same country right now. Here is all the proof. I love you all, and I think what hurts the most, more than this, more than the money wasted on therapy, more than the cheating, is that not a single one of you had my back. Here is the attached evidence. Don't worry, nothing graphic, but I have plenty of truly horrible videos and pictures if any of you still don't trust that I'm not insane. Please just give me some space and do not reach out for now. I then attached the screenshots of her Instagram story which show them in the same club in Paris at the same time. A screenshot of the video which takes place in his room, with me scribbling out the explicit stuff on my iPhone editor thing. Along with a side-by-side comparison of a picture I took after I had finished decorating his room with him, and a lewd picture of him topless which I think best proves it's him/his body. I then left the group chat. Within 10 minutes he started calling, so I blocked him everywhere. His mom texted me saying, "I'm so sorry. I love you so much and always will. Call if you need anything. I'll give you your space, sweetheart, but please do not hesitate to call me anytime. I love you like my own. Please know that." Which honestly turned me into an effing wreck. His little sister, who is 20 and who is amazing, turned up and just hugged me. She didn't even say anything, we just both sat here cried. She said, "I hope I don't lose you," when she left and hugged me again. I told her she never would. Honestly, I'm a mess right now. My parents are at work and unlikely to see the mess until at least lunchtime, if then. That's basically it. Thank you for everyone who took the time out of your day to message me and comfort me. Thank you for talking me out of doing something truly disgusting to the people who I do still love. They would not have deserved to see what I had to see. I'm gonna go cry myself to sleep, I think. I only slept like 3 hours last night. Update 2. Holy FK. So I've just been informed by his sister he has blocked his mom and sister after they both chastised him in the GC and has now proudly displayed the link to the OnlyFS in his Instagram bio. Glad I helped him to be his unapologetic self. Hope his new career choice goes well. King loser. I still haven't heard from my parents yet. They get out of work around 5 to 6, but his mom has said I'm welcome to go and hang out with her as she doesn't want me to be alone. I'm gonna get ready now and just go watch some movies at her house, maybe have a cheeky glass of wine. That was our little thing. Just because he's choosing to throw away this amazing group of people, our parents and our sisters, doesn't mean I have to do the same. Family is who is there for you in your time of need, and they are the family I choose. He can choose his OnlyFans if he wants. Good riddance. At least I won't have to see him when I hang out with his mom/sis. Update 3. So I went to his mom's place and sat there with her and his sister watching movies. We didn't really talk about anything, just had a glass of wine and watched TV. Eventually, I said I wanted to go to the toilet and I decided to go into his old room and everything just got too much. So many memories, so many moments that I had cherished so much. So long spent laying there, just hanging out and stuff. I had a really bad panic attack and ended up just breaking down and I felt like I was gonna faint. They came up and checked on me, and we all just sat in his room crying. This may sound pathetic and I'd love to pretend I'm some boss babe, but honestly, I don't think I've ever felt so lost and broken in my life. I loved that man, like I really loved him with my whole heart. I had since the day I met him. I can't believe it's over. It doesn't even feel like a breakup. It feels like the love of my life has just died. Like it feels like a death. I feel numb. It got too much. And his mom drove me home once my parents had finished work. His sisters went and picked up my car while his mom spoke to my parents. I think I was in a state of shock. I couldn't speak. Everything just sounded muffled, like I was underwater. I fell asleep and only just woke up now, It's 11:39. Everyone is in bed and I'm wide awake. I truly feel lost. Part of me wants to call him, to cry, to beg him to find a way to make everything okay, to tell me it isn't true, to turn back time. I know that's stupid. I know I deserve better. But I have spent every week of my life with him since the day we met. I don't know how to exist without him. I feel like I can't breathe. I just want this all to be a bad dream. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I 29F finally met my boyfriend's 34M family last month after dating for 3 years. We've been living together in Chicago for the past year, but his hometown is 8 hours away in rural Missouri. I've been asking to meet his family since our first anniversary, especially since he's met mine several times when they visited from Thailand. Every time I brought it up, he'd say stuff like, "They're just really private," or "They're old school and traditional," or "Let's wait until we're more settled." Fair enough, some families are weird about outsiders. Mine certainly has its quirks. Well, after 3 years together and me getting a permanent position at the hospital where I work as a physical therapist, we finally made the trip. And honestly, I don't know how to explain it, except that something felt seriously off the entire weekend. The moment we pulled into the driveway of his childhood home, I noticed his mom watching us from the window. Not a casual glance. She was full-on staring, not moving, not waving, just staring. When we got out of the car, she suddenly burst through the front door and ran to us, arms outstretched. She threw herself at me, not my boyfriend, but me, and squeezed so hard I could barely breathe. "Oh, my goodness. You're even more beautiful than the pictures. Jason, you didn't tell me she was this gorgeous. Oh my, look at your skin, your hair. Perfect, just perfect." His mom kept touching me, not in a perverted way, but constantly putting her hands on my shoulders, grabbing my hands when talking to me, playing with my hair, and hugging me at random moments. She kept saying how perfect I was and how beautiful I looked. The first night, she literally pinched my cheeks like I was a toddler. She insisted on serving me food, piling my plate high even after I said I was full, and kept refilling my wine glass despite me saying I don't handle alcohol well. "Nonsense, you need to relax around family," she'd say, pouring more wine into my glass. When I went to the bathroom and came back, I started pretending to sip it and then dumping some in a plant when no one was looking. His dad barely acknowledged my existence. He'd nod when I spoke but never initiated conversation, just sat there watching sports and occasionally whispering to my boyfriend in the kitchen when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Twice I walked into the kitchen and they immediately stopped talking. Their house was modestly sized, not tiny, but small enough that whispering in one room could sometimes be heard in another if you were paying attention. At dinner the first night, his mom served everyone else normal portions but gave me enough food for 3 people. When I said I couldn't possibly eat it all, she looked genuinely distressed and said, "But I made all this specially for you. Jason told me what you like." The problem was, most of the dishes weren't things I particularly enjoyed. My boyfriend knows I don't like shellfish, but there was a huge shrimp dish in front of me. I told him multiple times I can't handle spicy food, yet his mom kept insisting I try her famous 5-alarm chili, because Jason said you love spicy things. The questions from his mom were bizarre. What kind of wife do you plan to be? How committed are you to making relationships work? Do you believe in trying to fix things no matter what? She seemed intensely interested in my previous breakups, asking why I ended things with my ex and whether I fought hard enough to save that relationship. "When you love someone," she said, while gripping my wrist at one point, "you never give up on them, ever, no matter what happens. Families stick together through everything. That's what separates real love from fake love." His younger sister, Rebecca, kept giving me strange looks throughout dinner. She was maybe 25, lived at home, and barely spoke except to answer direct questions. When I asked what she did for work, she glanced at her mom before saying, "I help around the house, mostly." The entire weekend felt like some weird audition. My boyfriend, who's usually talkative and engaging, barely said 3 words, just sat there with this strange smile, looking down whenever I tried to make eye contact. When we went to bed that first night in the guest room, I asked him if everything was okay and he just said, "They really like you. That's good." The next morning, His mom insisted on making me breakfast, even though I explained I usually just have coffee. She made a massive spread, pancakes, eggs, bacon, waffles, fruit, and watched me intently as I ate. Every time I put my fork down, she'd urge me to eat more. "Growing girls need their strength," she said, which was weird since I'm 29 and definitely not growing anymore. After breakfast, she suggested we look at family photos. For 2 hours, she showed me album after album, but strangely there were very few pictures of my boyfriend as a teenager or young adult. Lots of childhood photos up to about age 12, then almost nothing until recent years. When I mentioned this, she quickly changed the subject and pulled out a different album entirely. During lunch, his mom asked if I wanted children. Before I could answer, she started describing how she'd always wanted a large family and was disappointed Jason was taking so long to give her grandchildren. My boyfriend stared at his plate during this entire conversation. That afternoon, his dad finally spoke directly to me. He cornered me while I was looking at books in their living room and said, "Jason tells me you're a permanent resident now." When I explained I was on a work visa, he nodded and said, "Tough process. Be a shame if anything went wrong with that." Then he smiled and walked away. On the second night, I pulled my boyfriend aside and told him I wasn't feeling great and wanted to head back to Chicago early. When he asked why, I said maybe I wasn't used to how his family socialized and that his mom was just really intense. I wasn't trying to be ungrateful. They'd prepared lots of food and given us their guest room, but something just felt wrong. He completely lost it, called me judgmental, culturally insensitive, and ungrateful when his family had bent over backward to welcome me. I apologized and said I was just overwhelmed, but he refused to discuss it further. That night, I overheard his parents talking in the kitchen after they thought we'd gone to bed. I couldn't make out everything, but I heard his mom say, "She's perfect, if she just learns to adjust," and his dad responding with, "Not like the other one." The 8-hour drive back to Chicago the next day was silent. He turned up the radio whenever I tried to talk. When I asked if we could please discuss what happened, he said, "There's nothing to discuss. You insulted my family after they welcomed you with open arms. That was a week ago." He's barely spoken 10 words to me since. Meanwhile, his mom has texted me constantly, how wonderful it was meeting me, how she can't wait to see me again, how she hopes we give her grandchildren soon, which is weird since we've never even discussed marriage. She sent me at least 20 messages, often late at night, with specific questions about when we might visit again. After 3 days of silent treatment, I tried apologizing again. He just grunted and walked out of the room. I went to work, came home, and found he'd moved his pillow and blanket to the couch. He didn't come to bed at all that night. Last night, I cooked his favorite meal as a peace offering. He took one bite, said he wasn't hungry, and went to bed at 7 p.m. The rest of the food sat untouched. I wrapped it up and put it in the fridge, but this morning I noticed he'd thrown it all away. What did I just screw everything up by being ungrateful? Should I have just kept my mouth shut about getting weird vibes? Edit. He's still not talking to me. It's been 9 days. He sleeps on the couch and leaves for work before I wake up. I've tried everything. Apologizing, making his favorite foods, suggesting we talk to a third party. Nothing, just cold silence or one-word answers. Last night, I asked if he wanted to break up and he just shrugged and went back to watching TV. What the am I supposed to do now? Update 1. Holy. My previous post blew up overnight and I couldn't keep up with all the comments. Thanks for the advice, even the harsh stuff. After another day of silent treatment, I cornered my boyfriend when he got home from his job and insisted we talk. I blocked the doorway to the living room and said, "We need to sort this out right now. I can't live like this anymore." I apologized again for how I came across about his family and asked if we could please move past this. His reaction was not what I expected. He shoved past me, not violently but firmly enough that I had to step aside, and threw his work boots across the room. He turned to me with a face I'd never seen before. He exploded, saying my reaction to his family showed exactly why he'd been protecting them from me for so long. Then he dropped the bomb that I should be grateful that he brought me to America and that my entire life here depends on him. For context, we met in Thailand when he was teaching English at the language center where I worked as an administrator. I had already applied to graduate programs in the US before meeting him. My English was already fluent. It's required in my field. I came on a student visa, which later converted to a work visa when the hospital hired me. While he helped me navigate some paperwork, I earned my own way here. My salary as a physical therapist is actually higher than what he makes. When I pointed this out, that I had my own visa, my own job, and had been planning to come to the US even before we met, he shifted tactics and accused me of cheating on him, said the only reason I'd find his perfect family uncomfortable was if I was trying to sabotage our relationship so I could run off with someone else. Who is it? That doctor you're always talking about, or your friend Mike from the gym? I'm not stupid. I see the way you're always on your phone smiling at messages. The doctor he mentioned is a 65-year-old man who supervises my department. Mike is a gay client I've been helping recover from knee surgery. I wasn't smiling at messages. I was watching physical therapy technique videos on YouTube. He demanded to see my phone. I handed it over because I have nothing to hide. He spent an hour going through my texts, emails, photos, search history, everything. Found nothing, obviously. No inappropriate messages, no secret conversations, no hidden apps. Instead of apologizing, he said he needed to reevaluate our entire relationship and stormed out. I heard his car screech out of the parking lot. He came back at 2 a.m. reeking of beer and slept on the couch again. The next morning before work, he said his family was willing to give me another chance if I behaved better next time, and that no one else in America would put up with an ungrateful like you. He said I should be on my knees thanking him for not kicking me out. I stood there like an idiot watching him leave for work. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my coffee mug and it shattered on the kitchen floor. While cleaning up the pieces, I realized I'd never seen this side of him before. In 3 years, he'd raised his voice maybe twice during normal arguments couples have. Never anything like this. That's when I did something I should have done days ago. I Googled him. The first few results were normal, but then I found articles from 6 years ago in the Missouri Herald. Turns out his previous girlfriend vanished, completely disappeared, one night after leaving work. Her car was found at a highway rest stop 30 miles outside their hometown. Local news articles showed he was investigated as a person of interest. They'd been dating for 4 years. The case went cold after a few months. No body was found, no charges filed. But he'd never mentioned this girlfriend at all. He told me he'd only had casual relationships before me. Nothing serious. Just wasn't ready to settle down before you came along. I called my friend Kayla from work and she came over immediately. I was sitting on the bathroom floor when she arrived, still clutching my phone with the news articles on the screen. She read the articles, then helped me pack essentials while I contacted my parents. They wired me emergency money through Western Union. "Get out now," my dad said on the phone. "Don't wait another minute." I left before he returned from work, checked into a hotel 50 miles away under Kayla's name, turned off location services on my phone, and left my laptop behind because it was company property and I wasn't thinking straight. Within an hour, he started texting, "Where are you? Why did you leave? What's wrong?" At first, the messages seemed concerned. I sent him screenshots of the news articles and asked why he lied about his past. The texts quickly turned nasty. "You ungrateful. Nobody will ever want you like I do. You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me." Then came the threats. "Your visa won't be valid if I report what you did. I did nothing wrong and my visa doesn't depend on him. I know where your parents live. I paid for everything you have." Completely untrue. Then his mom started calling multiple times, left voicemails saying her son was misunderstood and had nothing to do with that terrible business, and that if we just settled down and started a family, everything would smooth out. "Melissa was troubled," she said in one message. "Always making up stories, always threatening to leave. Not stable like you. You're perfect for Jason. You can heal our family. Please come back. We can work through this misunderstanding." I blocked both their numbers, called the hospital and spoke to my supervisor explaining I needed emergency leave for a personal crisis. She was understanding and approved 2 weeks. That night, I barely slept. Every noise in the hotel corridor made me jump. The next day, Kayla drove me to the airport. I'm flying back to Thailand tomorrow. Most of my stuff is still at the apartment, but it's just stuff. My parents are wiring money for immediate needs, and I've already contacted an immigration attorney about my visa status. I don't know if he had anything to do with his ex's disappearance. That's for the police to figure out. But I know he lied about something massive. His family gives off serious creep vibes, and the way he flipped from loving boyfriend to threatening in the span of a week tells me everything I need to know. Thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. Without your input, I might have kept trying to fix things until it was too late. Update 2. It's been 3 months since I fled Chicago and returned to Thailand. A lot has happened, so I'll try to cover the important parts. First, I'm safe. I'm staying with my parents in Thailand while sorting out my next steps. I initially planned to just take a short break, maybe find a job in another US city, but after weeks of harassment, I decided staying in Thailand made more sense for now. Technically, with my level of qualification as a physical therapist, I could have found another employer in the US willing to sponsor my visa, but I'd need to deal with a new petition, potential gaps in status, and the uncertainty of approval. My immigration attorney said that while it was certainly possible, the process would be stressful even under normal circumstances. He warned that someone this vindictive might try to interfere with any new visa process or employment verification. The last thing I needed was to be dealing with USCIS complications while also looking over my shoulder constantly. The threats my ex made about knowing where to find me in the US really scared me, so I had to officially resign from my position at the hospital. My boss was incredibly understanding about the situation. I explained everything in a long phone call. She provided a letter of a reference that's already helped me secure interviews at international hospitals in Bangkok next week. I have a final interview with a rehabilitation center that specializes in treating tourists who've been injured while traveling. It's not ideal, but I'm making the best of the situation. The day after I arrived in Thailand, my boyfriend, now ex, emailed from a new address. He apologized for overreacting and begged me to come back, said his family really liked me and were confused by my sudden departure. He said I misunderstood the articles I found, that his ex had mental health issues and likely ran away, and that the police cleared him completely. No actual explanation for why he lied about her existence for 3 years. I didn't respond. 3 days later, another email arrived with flight information. He'd purchased a ticket to Bangkok for the following week. Said he was coming to bring me home and sort things out in person. Said he'd already contacted the US Embassy to help straighten out any visa misunderstandings. The email ended with, "You don't need to reply. I'll see you soon." I immediately contacted the Thai police and the US Embassy. The embassy staff were surprisingly helpful, taking down all the information and placing notes in their system. They confirmed my visa status was completely independent of him and suggested I file a report with local authorities. I also filed a report with the local police, who promised to watch for him at immigration checkpoints. The officer I spoke with took copies of his threats and the news articles. He never showed up. Either he couldn't get a visa on short notice or someone talked sense into him. Either way, the ticket went unused. A week after he was supposed to arrive, I received another email just saying, "This isn't over." His mother continued trying to reach me through different channels, creating new email addresses, reaching out to former coworkers, even contacting my parents through their website, always with the same message. Her son was innocent. I was making a terrible mistake. We belonged together. She'd always wanted a daughter just like me. She even sent an email to my old supervisor saying I'd had a mental breakdown and needed to be brought home for treatment. Thankfully, my boss recognized this as harassment and forwarded everything to me. I blocked every new contact attempt and warned friends and family to do the same. My parents installed security cameras around their house as a precaution. 2 weeks after I left, police officers showed up at my parents' house. Apparently my ex had filed a missing persons report, claiming I disappeared under suspicious circumstances and might be in danger. The report suggested I might be suffering from delusions and had fabricated stories about his past before vanishing. The officers were confused when I opened the door myself and explained the situation. I showed them our text exchanges and the news articles about his previous girlfriend. They took notes and left, assuring me they'd update the international database to show I was safe and had left the US voluntarily. Meanwhile, I've been picking up the pieces of my life. My parents helped me retrieve most of my documents and financial information, though some personal items remain in Chicago. A friend helped me deal with a joint bank account, thankfully containing only a small emergency fund, and my cell phone contract. I found out my ex tried to access my medical records at the hospital where I worked. The compliance officer contacted me after flagging his attempt as unauthorized. He'd shown up claiming to be my husband and saying he needed my records for an insurance claim. My former apartment manager emailed to say he'd finally moved my things out of the apartment. Apparently he'd kept paying rent for 2 months after I left, telling neighbors I was visiting family and would be back soon. When he finally moved out, he left behind most of my clothes and books, but took all my photos and personal mementos. Some people have asked why I didn't go to the police immediately after finding those articles. Honestly, I was scared and confused. Nothing overtly threatening had happened yet. He hadn't hit me or explicitly threatened me. I just felt unsafe in a way I couldn't fully articulate. My instincts were screaming to get out first, sort through the details later. Now I understand it was my subconscious processing danger signals my conscious mind hadn't fully registered. I don't know if my ex had anything to do with his previous girlfriend's disappearance. I hope the authorities figure that out. What I do know is that I escaped a situation that was rapidly deteriorating, where multiple red flags were waving, and where both he and his family showed deeply troubling behavior. To those who commented on my original post saying I was overreacting to a family that was just being nice. Sometimes your gut knows something's wrong before your brain can articulate why. I'm alive because I listened to that feeling. To those who encouraged me to take the signs seriously and get out, thank you. Your words might have saved my life. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Fiancé asked me to open our relationship right before our wedding, and later I found out that his guru friends had been manipulating him for months. I, 28F, and my fiancé, John, 28M, have been together for, as the title says, about 5 years. To understand the dilemma, I need to give you some background. We both came from very religious backgrounds, though it affected both of us very differently. John became a problem child, running away, causing problems, and eventually finding a crowd his parents would not approve of. Most of the members of this group were a part of the LGBTQ+, smoked pot, engaged in protests, and were either atheist or practiced different religions. Although some of the members have since left, this crowd became his current friend group. I won't go into details about each and every one of them, but the main ringleaders are Alex, 35NB, and Avery, 33M. From what I understand, they collected damaged people, as John jokingly said one day, and let them couch surf when things got rough. Alex is some sort of Nepo baby, and Avery works in IT or something like that. John met them when he was 15. At first, I thought they seemed very cool and couldn't wait to meet them since John equated their relationship to that of a child and a parent. So clearly very important people in his life. But when I finally met them when we were 21 and in college and home for the summer break, the meeting left me a bit disillusioned. Alex was cold and had snarky remarks since I wasn't LGBTQ+ or anything, at most, bi-curious, and Avery treated me like a child. But John said they always need to break new people in. So I tried to think positively and did my best to impress them with what I was studying and what my plans for the future are, both regarding me personally and my relationship. But the more I talked, the more they seemed to disapprove of me. Despite the strange meeting, John seemed ecstatic to see them again and gushed about how much they liked me. So I kept my mouth shut and just nodded along. Now, to understand a bit deeper on who Alex and Avery are, in the town they live in, they're something like local celebrities. Very spiritual. Their home is full of souvenirs they accumulated over all their travels. They're also married, but their definition of marriage is very different from the traditional one. Apparently, they went to some tropical state and took some hallucinogens together, and in their state they proclaimed everlasting love for one another. Quite a wild concept for someone like me, but I learned to be more open-minded since I left for college. That being said, they also said that they can see auras, whatever that is, and apparently love my fiancés. I don't know what they think of mine, but it probably isn't much. Which brings us to the topic I came here with. Last week, after we got home from work, John sat me down and asked me what I think about being in a polygamous relationship. He said he loves me so much more than is possible and doesn't know what to do with the rest of it, thinking that it's fair to give it to someone else. I, on the other hand, don't have a limit on how much I can love him, so I said no, and that was that. However, the question has been plaguing my mind ever since. If you knew John just a fraction, you'd know he researches about things long before he actually commits to anything, any lifestyle or relationship changes, whatever. This makes me think that he has already thought about it for a while and that he also consulted Alex and or Avery about this. I don't want to villainize them, but I know for a fact they're not in a monogamous relationship and they clearly don't like me as the rest of their little group. Again, I don't want to point fingers, and I won't ask John to show me his messages with them unless I have solid proof that isn't just a gut feeling. But I just have this horrible feeling that they somehow pulled in John. There's no way he just thought about it suddenly on his own. 5 years of relationship and the idea of non-monogamy was never brought up, and now, suddenly, just as we're about to be married, he brings this up? I don't buy it one bit, but I can't just go ahead and confront them now, can I? I just don't know what to do. I feel stuck. At home, I pretend everything is fine since my group of close friends told me that I'm just overthinking, and I believed it for a while. But whenever I look at John, all I can think of is, he thinks there's a cap on how much he can love me and he wants to love someone else. I want to deal with this, but I don't know how. If I bring it up with John, he'll just brush it off as well, or he'll think I'm cheating or don't trust his friends. I worked hard to get their approval and I know for a fact John shares everything with them. He wouldn't keep this for himself. I just hope that someone here can give me pointers on how to proceed. Thanks. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. If you don't swing that way, then end it. It'll only get worse once you're married. This is not something you can compromise on. He wants to sick other people while you do not. OP. God. The idea of ending our relationship is so scary. I feel like I built my entire life since leaving for college around him, and if we separate, I worry I'm gonna fall apart. But I understand where you're coming from. I need more time to process the reality of it all. Love. Comment 2. Please don't let them brainwash you. There are plenty of cases where people are pulled into someone else's lifestyle and then randomly dropped. It will leave you wondering who you even are. I've been there and it ruined me. What happens if you drink the Kool-Aid and they reject you later? It's hard to come back from that, and I'm not saying this as a matter based solely on sexual preference either. New age mumbo-jumbo or auras, mixed with radical changes in sexual interest can really F a person up. A lot of people like this function almost like a hive mind or the popular clique in high school. If you already feel like you're being pushed away from the group and now he's making this request, it's a bad sign. Also, the idea of him having so much love that it's unfair to only give it to you is a horrible cop-out and a very common excuse people use when trying to convince their S/O to try poly or open. It's often used to guilt people. It's almost like he's suggesting that you are greedy for wanting to keep your relationship personal and exclusive. I just say be careful. I don't want you to end up hurt like I was. Dedicating yourself to one person while their character and lifestyle is completely changing can end up with you getting hurt bad. If he is sincerely changing in this way, I'd be worried about how much you invest in him. I only say this because I was fully invested in my ex and she started hanging out with a group of college friends more frequently towards the end. One day we got into a small argument over parking and it ended with her saying she wasn't certain what sex she was attracted to anymore and wasn't sure if she was even female anymore and that we had to end things. Now I would have been fine with helping them figure them out, but for her, it kind of just became her excuse to break up with me. I think it was more about her/them wanting to have fun and was influenced by her group of friends all being single or experimenting, who all came out around the same time. I think she saw them having fun and FOMO TBH, so to her, she was getting her chance to catch up on fun she may have missed out on being in a relationship. To me, it was losing a piece of myself that I invested years of love into. OP. I'm really sorry you had to go through that. I really hope John isn't using this as a maneuvering tactic to get out of the relationship or a chance to catch up. It doesn't sound like him, but I'll keep this in mind. Update. September 17th, 2024. Thank you so much for all the nice replies and genuine advice you've offered. Not to sound cliché, but I didn't expect over 100 comments and some nice DMs. I'm sorry I didn't respond much. The whole situation was kind of emotionally draining. I figured I'd update when something major happens, and I think this is it. But before I get ahead of myself, let me fill in some blanks in my story. Me and John came from similar backgrounds, but my family was a bit less strict, allowing me to go to college since I had great grades. The plan for me was to move back after getting a degree, finding a job, a husband, and living the traditional life, which obviously didn't happen because I met John, who literally changed the trajectory of my life. After a year, I switched from my first major to one I liked more, and it's been a while since I contacted my parents. They didn't approve, of course, but with John's help, I didn't give in to their demands to come back. Now they know I'm getting married and are invited, but the last time we spoke was about 2 months ago. John is completely no contact with his parents since 18. I didn't talk about the friend group in more detail at first since I didn't think they were that important, but they do like me. At first, they were obviously a bit unsure since to them, I was a cisgender, white-passing woman, but they warmed up to me, and I'm proud to call them my friends. The only people who didn't fully accept me are Avery and Alex, and since me and John got together officially, they tend to call me the wife in this strange, almost derogatory manner. It's not an important detail, but it gets on my nerves. Lastly, John is aware that opening up the relationship would lead to me being intimate, physically or emotionally, with other people, but he said it's a great chance for me to explore my bi-side. Though I haven't expressed the desire to really be with a woman in a committed relationship of that magnitude. On to what happened. I sent a message to John 2 days ago that we need to talk. He works from home. I don't, so as soon as I got home, we sat down to have an in-depth conversation about his proposal. I think he knew what it was going to be about, and I had the feeling he seemed almost guilty, but I ignored that and basically word vomited everything that's been on my mind. This is embarrassing because I wrote down most of what the comments advised and was prepared to have a mature discussion, but by the end of my easily 15-minute rant, I was in tears and he had to hold me, otherwise I'd crumble completely. The gist of what I said is that I'm hurt that he wants to be with other people and that he doesn't care that I'd be with other people too, that he believes there's a limit to how much he can love me, and that I can't see where this all came from. That he just sprung this on me out of nowhere just a few months before we're to be wed. We tried to have a mature discussion, yes, but by the end, he was frustrated. He did apologize for making me feel less than, but said that my outlook on an open relationship is selfish. What it all boiled down to was that he feels he didn't have enough time to find himself before he committed to me, which is because he didn't show any signs of wanting more than I could offer. We were very happy throughout the 5 years. I really believed I met my soulmate. I realized that since we were engaged, he seemed to talk more to his friend group and by extension to Avery and Alex. Again, I don't want to paint them as these cartoonish villains. They're really interesting and all, but now I want nothing more than to scratch those self-absorbed, smug smiles off their face. In the end, I demanded to see his phone and he was shocked. We had a rule that we can see each other's phones, but we don't share passwords or anything since relationship is built on trust. And neither wanted to be a prison guard in the relationship. Nevertheless, he unlocked and handed over his phone, and I searched his messages, even deleted ones, and found nothing out of the ordinary. Then I checked the call log, and guess what? Hours-long calls to and from either Avery or Alex. I was fuming and asked him what the hell does he need to discuss with them this long? And mind you, these dated months back. John eventually caved in and admitted it was them who brought up the idea of open relationship, but they also talked about everything else since they're his guru role models. John admitted that he started getting cold feet a while ago and needed a safe place to discuss this. I guess I, his wife-to-be, am not safe. Please make it make sense. Why even marry me then? He promised we'd go to a couples counselor and fix all of this. His issues with marriage, the open relationship thing, the whole 9 yards. And then he'd book an emergency session with his therapist. That he loves me and wants nothing but to be with me. It was late, so we went to bed. Despite how messy this all sounds, I was a bit more reassured by this. I genuinely love him even if my post doesn't reflect that very well. Though many people said to just leave, I want that to be the last resort. I was willing to jump through hoops to make this work. But guess who's the idiot? This morning, I woke up to an empty apartment and a message on my phone from John, saying that he needs a few days to think this all over and needs space. He didn't say where he was going or when he'd come back. I called and messaged everyone I know, but no one can tell me where John is. I told him that he either comes back home in 24 hours or this is over. As you can imagine, I'm a wreck. I took the rest of the week off. In between crying sessions and staring blankly into the wall, I obsessively checked my messages in hopes of someone telling me where John is. To be honest, if he's willing to put me through this, I'm not sure I want to be with him. How can you do this to someone you love? Now on to the next story. Story 5. My girlfriend wanted an open relationship, but when I said no, she said I wasn't compromising and needed to feel remorseful for making her suppress her desires. We're both 27 and have been dating for 10 months. My girlfriend, Lucy, is bisexual and has always been open with me about her kinks and fantasies. And bringing in other people, MMF, MFF, MMFF, and so on, features high on her list. I'm pretty vanilla by comparison. I never guilt-tripped her or shamed her when she opened up to me about these, but I always made it clear to Lucy that they were a bit above what I could provide and that, in particular, I would never be comfortable bringing another man into the equation. About 6 months into the relationship, Lucy suggested that we have an MFF threesome with another woman and that she would be happy to arrange it. I was a little apprehensive about this initially as I didn't want it to be used against me as a bargaining chip further down the line, and so constantly checked in with Lucy, asking if she was sure it was something she wanted and that we would be doing it together. Not long after the threesome took place, Lucy suggested that we visit a garden party together, which we did and at which we only played with each other. She also suggested reaching out and meeting other couples involved in the scene. My understanding was that we would be befriending couples who were also dipping their toes in the water with garden parties and such, and people who could accompany us to these kinds of events as friends. We matched with another couple on an app and met up with them a few times for drinks. Earlier tonight, Lucy called me and hit me with a curveball. She said that for the past few months, she had been feeling unsatisfied and unenthused by our sex life. This really caught me off guard. I knew that Lucy was more adventurous, and I thought I had been doing a decent job of accommodating this. The MFF threesome, the sex party, and talking to another couple. I was hurt by this revelation, but I did my best to find out from Lucy what it was she felt was lacking and what we could do to fix things. After a bit of probing, it became apparent that she wanted us to experiment with MMFF, non-monogamy, flirting with another couple, playing truth or dare type games with them, ideally some form of swapping, etc. All things that would make me uncomfortable and which I just can't ever see myself doing, and yet which are extremely important to Lucy. I asked Lucy if there was anything else at all we could try in order to meet in the middle. The subject of toys came up, but it was pretty apparent this was a mere sideshow. Lucy got a bit shitty with me at one point, insinuating I wasn't being open-minded enough, asking how I knew that I wouldn't be into what she was asking, that the situation is unfair, and that I'm not willing to compromise even though she is the one instigating all of this whilst being fully aware what my boundaries are. After a bit of back and forth, it eventually dawned on us both that we were staring at the end of the relationship. I told Lucy I was hurt by the revelation but that I was still thankful that she spoke up, that she needs to do right by herself and not compromise on something if it's important to her. At this point, Lucy became tearful, asking if this was the end, that this wasn't how she expected the conversation to go, and so on. We ended up saying good night after promising we'd have another chat about it later. I'm writing this now, having just gotten off the phone with her. I'm pretty gutted. Being told out of the blue that your partner has been unsatisfied and unexcited isn't a particularly great thing to hear. I think this is probably the end of Lucy and I, as I don't see myself ever entertaining the scenario she wants us to partake in, and even if she agreed to bury it, there would be the risk of this coming up again at a later date. Since I started writing this, Lucy has been texting me, pleading with me to compromise. I am trying my best to explain to her that the boundaries she is asking me to compromise on are hard ones and which would very likely lead to me getting hurt, but the topic of compromise keeps coming up. Not sure what to do. I would appreciate any advice on how to navigate this and if things might possibly be salvaged without major boundaries being crossed. Thanks. Edit. Thanks for the comments, everyone. I think it's pretty clear that this is the end of the road for Lucy and I. I will have a chat with her tonight and tell her that we're through. Update 1. A few weeks ago, I posted in another sub about a situation with my GF, Lucy, nudging me to try forms of non-monogamy that I wasn't comfortable with and claiming I needed to compromise when I pushed back. The consensus from comments on my post was that the relationship needed to end as we were clearly sexually incompatible, but deep down, I was adamant that things could be salvaged somehow. Not long after our initial conversation, I explained to Lucy why her actions were wrong, pushing against my boundaries despite my repeated saying no, and she apologized to me. She suggested that we go away and write lists of activities that we would or wouldn't be comfortable engaging in and seeing where we could find common ground or meet each other in the middle. It seemed reasonable. The other day, we sent each other our lists. Lucy was clearly disappointed with mine, as I more or less ruled out partaking in all of the ethical non-monogamy E&M activities that she suggested. I made it clear that I was willing to partake in monogamous activities from her list that she enjoyed, for example, toys, but that didn't seem to really cut it for her. "It is what it is," she said on the phone with a sigh, her tone of voice one of clear disappointment. "I'm the one who's losing out here. You get to keep everything you want to do, but I don't really get anything. It's fine though. I can just suppress my desires and keep them in my head." I really disliked her insinuation that I was being obtuse or selfish for not willing to compromise on my boundaries, and I asked why me being willing to try the monogamous activities she outlined didn't seem to count as meeting her in the middle. "It's got to be spontaneous, and I want my partner to enjoy it too," which struck me as odd. I can't snap my fingers and suddenly change my enjoyment of or attitude towards a particular sexual activity. I explained to Lucy that she was the one who told me a few weeks ago with pretty stinging words that our sex life was unexciting and unsatisfying for her, and that even after our list comparison exercise, the options for fixing this were clearly pretty limited despite me being willing to give certain monogamous things a try. I told her that I now have all these ominous thoughts, such as, is my partner ever going to be sexually satisfied by me? Is she going to end up resenting or cheating on me? Swirling in my mind, and that some kind of reassurance that these fears were misplaced or that we could work through this would really help me. She immediately clapped back with, "Well, what about me? What about all the things I'm having to give up?" That really got to me, and it reminded me of our previous conversation where she had basically showed no regard for my feelings with her constant nudging up against my boundaries. I felt myself getting angry and knew a shouting match would just make things worse, so I abruptly said goodnight and hung up on her. Before I went to bed, she sent a barrage of texts explaining that she was upset by the situation, that she wanted me to feel more remorseful because of all the things she now has to suppress and keep in her imagination. She also explained that she felt unappreciated for having to bury her sexual desires for the sake of the relationship. This sat really uncomfortably with me. Why on earth would someone need to feel remorseful for not wanting to risk their own mental well-being just so their partner can feel sexually satisfied? That I need to appreciate her for this horrible anxiety about the relationship I now feel. If Lucy and I were in a dead bedroom or I was completely closed off to trying new things, I would understand, but not wanting to take part in E&M. I had said to her before that I was sorry that she felt like she was losing out, but insinuating that upholding sexual boundaries is something I need to show remorse for is honestly pretty horrible. My head is all over the place. I perhaps naively hoped that things between her and I could be salvaged by comparing our respective lists and working with the overlap between the two. But if anything, it's just made it even more apparent that her and I are sexually incompatible, and frankly, her way of handling the whole situation has really upset me. I feel like, as in my last post, she has no real regard for my feelings and is just angling for the outcome she wants, this time with lousy attempts at guilt-tripping. I don't think I can ignore the writing on the wall this time. I care about Lucy a lot, but I hate how she keeps pushing and breaking me down like this and her general lack of respect for my feelings and me as a person. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. She's trying to manipulate you into getting what she wants. This is a huge flag to part ways. She's made it clear she wants this regardless of your feelings and that her holding back is a favor to you. All it will take is one nasty fight and she will give in to temptation. Whether she tells you or not is up for debate, but it likely will happen. Her mindset isn't on making a monogamous relationship work. She's more interested in exploring with you as a safety net. Spare yourself the further pain and heartbreak. OP. To add a bit of context, Lucy is really interested in playing with other couples in an MMFF-type setting. I am not, and when explaining this to me, was adamant that this was only something she wanted us to do as a couple. Now, I obviously don't want to explore MMFF, but I doubt that this thing is a pretext for her going behind my back and being unfaithful. Famous last words, I know. That said, the damage has obviously been done. After multiple conversations with her, it's apparent that our sex life is always going to be unexciting and unsatisfying for her unless I capitulate on this, and I don't want to be in a relationship where my partner makes it clear our sex life is something that they're settling for. To say nothing of expecting me to somehow be grateful/apologetic for this. Comment 2. Sounds like she's either interested in trying the swinger/poly lifestyle or is poly. For you, it's a hard no. That's okay. Her wanting to is also okay. Can just make you incompatible. Monogamous people trying to be poly and vice versa usually ends with a lot of suffering and hurt feelings for everyone involved. Whatever you do, I wish you the absolute best. Update 2. Lucy and I have broken up. I broke the news to her yesterday, first via text. I initially told her that we needed to talk on the phone, but she insisted that if it was to break up, that I just tell her over text and then confirming it on the phone. She was super tearful and kept insisting that this was all a giant misunderstanding, that she was sorry for how she had behaved and that she would never hurt me, that she is happy in our relationship. It was really hard hearing her so upset, but I stood my ground. To be honest, I felt like she was backpedaling on things she had said earlier and downplaying how important the E&M activities she wanted to try are. They are things that she had expressed interest in repeatedly very early on and so can't be dismissed as passing fancies. I told her I appreciated her apologizing, but the damage was done. I can't be in a relationship with someone I'm clearly sexually incompatible with no real chance of fixing it. This was absolutely for the best, but it still hurts. Lucy and I are giving each other some space. We had an upcoming trip together and I have a few of her things at mine, so we will have to meet up eventually to sort a few things out and maybe clear the air, and so I'll need to be strong and make sure I don't cave in. Thank you for hearing me out and advising me, it means a lot. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Jealous sister ruined my relationship, so I caught her cheating and exposed everything at her proposal party. I 28M. Never thought I'd be writing this. 3 years ago, my sister, Sandra, 26F, did something that completely ruined my life, and I've been planning my revenge ever since. Now that I've finally executed it, I'm thinking about everything. Let me start from the beginning. 3 years ago, I was in a great relationship with my then-girlfriend, Kathy. We'd been together for a year, and things were going really well. I was even thinking about proposing. Kathy was smart, funny, and we just clicked in a way I'd never experienced before. Kathy and I met at a mutual friend's birthday party. We hit it off immediately, talking for hours about everything from our favorite things to our dreams for the future. She was a pediatric nurse, passionate about her job, and always ready with a funny story about the kids she worked with. I was working as a software engineer, and she'd listen patiently as I rambled on about my latest projects, even though I'm sure half of it went over her head. Our relationship wasn't perfect. No relationship is, but we always managed to work through our issues. We were both committed to making it work, and I really thought she was the one. We'd even started talking about moving in together. Then there's my sister, Sandra. She's always been the golden child in our family. Whatever Sandra wanted, Sandra got. Growing up, this caused a lot of problems between us, but as adults, we'd managed to maintain a somewhat cordial relationship. Sandra is 2 years younger than me, but you'd never know it from the way our parents treated her. She was always the star of the family. Valedictorian in high school, full scholarship to an Ivy League college, and she landed a high-paying job right out of school. Meanwhile, I was the underachiever who went to a state school and took a few years to find my footing in my career. I was happy for Sandra's success, but it was hard to always feel like I was living in her shadow. Every family dinner turned into a celebration of Sandra's latest achievement, while my own accomplishments were barely acknowledged. When I introduced Kathy to my family, I was nervous. I wanted them to like her, to see how happy she made me, and they did seem to like her at first. One day, out of the blue, Kathy broke up with me. She was in tears, accusing me of cheating on her with multiple women. I had never even looked at another woman, let alone cheated. When I asked her where she got this idea, she said Sandra had shown her proof. Text messages, photos, the works. I was devastated. I tried to explain that it was all a lie, but Kathy wouldn't listen. She blocked me on everything, and I never got a chance to clear things up. I was heartbroken and confused. For the next few weeks, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment of our relationship in my head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. I reached out to Kathy countless times, leaving voicemails, sending emails, even showing up at her workplace once. Not my proudest moment, but she wanted nothing to do with me. It took me a while to piece everything together, but eventually, I figured out what happened. Sandra had fabricated all the evidence of my supposed cheating. She'd used photo editing software to create fake text conversations and even manipulated some innocent photos of me with female friends to make them look compromising. When I confronted Sandra about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She just shrugged and said, "You were getting too happy." It was annoying. That's when I realized how truly spiteful my sister was. She'd ruined my relationship simply because she couldn't stand to see me happy. I was furious, but Sandra just laughed it off. She told me there was nothing I could do about it. Our parents, as usual, took her side. They said I must have done something to provoke her, that Sandra would never do something like that unprovoked. It was always the same with them. I tried to explain to them what had happened, how Sandra had fabricated evidence and destroyed my relationship, but they wouldn't hear it. My mom just patted my hand and said, "I'm sure you're exaggerating, dear. Sandra wouldn't do that." My dad was even worse, telling me to man up and stop blaming my sister for my relationship problems. That's when I decided I wouldn't let this go. I was going to make Sandra pay, but I knew I had to be patient. I had to wait for the perfect moment. For the next 3 years, I took my time. I pretended everything was fine between us. I even started hanging out with Sandra and her boyfriend, Thomas, more often. Thomas was a great guy, and I actually felt bad for him, knowing what kind of person Sandra really was. Thomas was everything Sandra supposedly wanted in a partner. He was successful, good-looking, and came from a wealthy family. But more than that, he was genuinely kind and thoughtful. He always remembered everyone's birthdays, was the first to offer help when someone needed it, and had a way of making people feel valued and heard. I watched as Sandra paraded Thomas around like a trophy, showing him off at family gatherings and on social media. But I also saw the moments when she thought no one was looking. The eye rolls when Thomas said something she deemed stupid, the impatient sighs when he took too long to do something. During this time, I threw myself into my work. I got a promotion, started earning more money than I ever had before. I even dated a bit, but nothing serious. I couldn't bring myself to fully trust anyone after what happened with Kathy. About 6 months ago, I noticed Sandra started acting strange. She was always on her phone, smiling at texts, and making excuses to go out alone. It didn't take a genius to figure out what was going on. She was having an affair. I didn't confront her. Instead, I started gathering evidence. I know it sounds creepy, but I needed proof. I managed to get photos of her with another guy, screenshots of their conversations. Turns out, Sandra isn't great at hiding her phone passcode. The works. The guy she was cheating with was a colleague from work, Robert. He was everything Thomas wasn't. Brash, arrogant, the type of guy who thought he was God's gift to women. In their messages, Sandra and Robert would mock Thomas, calling him boring and predictable. It made me sick to read. Last week, Thomas told me he was planning to propose to Sandra. He even showed me the ring. It was beautiful, a family heirloom that had belonged to his grandmother. Thomas was so excited, telling me all about his plans for the proposal and their future together. That's when I knew it was time to act. The day of the proposal came. Thomas had planned a big surprise party with all their friends and family. He was going to propose in front of everyone. Just before he was about to get down on one knee, I stood up and asked for everyone's attention. I revealed everything. I showed everyone the evidence of Sandra's affair. I explained how she'd ruined my relationship 3 years ago out of pure spite and how this was karma coming back to bite her. The room went dead silent. Thomas was shocked. Sandra was crying, screaming at me to stop, but I didn't stop until I'd laid out every single detail. I showed them the photos of Sandra and Robert together, leaving a hotel. I read out some of their text messages, including the ones where they mocked Thomas. I even played a voicemail Sandra had left for Robert, telling him how much better he was than Thomas. After that, Thomas left, completely devastated. Sandra was sobbing, alternating between begging Thomas to come back and screaming at me. Our parents were trying to calm everyone down, but it was useless. In the aftermath, Sandra came to my apartment. She was a mess, crying and demanding that I fix things. She said I'd ruined her life, that Thomas was the best thing that ever happened to her. I just laughed and told her, "Now she knows how it feels. How could you do this to me? I'm your sister." She kept saying this over and over. "How could I do this?" I repeated, "How could you ruin my relationship with Kathy? How could you lie to her? Make her believe I was cheating?" Sandra had the audacity to look confused. "That was years ago," she said. "I thought you were over it. That's when I lost it." I told her exactly what I thought of her. How she'd always been selfish and cruel. How her parents' favoritism had turned her into a monster. I told her she deserved everything that was happening to her. She left my apartment in tears, and I haven't heard from her since. Our parents have been calling nonstop, leaving voicemails about how I've torn the family apart. They're demanding I apologize to Sandra and try to fix things with Thomas. It's been a few days now, and I'm thinking back on everything. Thomas was a good guy, and I did feel bad for him, but at the same time, I feel like Sandra got what she deserved. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who commented and shared their thoughts. Reading through your responses made me realize that while many of you agreed Sandra deserved what she got, some also pointed out that I might have gone too far by hurting Thomas in the process. I've had time to reflect, and here's an update on the situation. First off, the fallout from the failed proposal has been intense. Our family is in complete disarray. My parents, predictably, are furious with me. They've been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between guilt-tripping me and outright threatening to cut me off if I don't apologize to Sandra and try to fix things. I've mostly been ignoring their messages, but I did respond once to tell them that I had no intention of apologizing and that if they wanted to cut me off, they should go ahead. That shut them up for a while, but they started up again after a few days. Sandra, on the other hand, has been quiet. After her initial meltdown at my apartment, she hasn't reached out to me directly. I've heard from mutual friends that she's a mess, barely leaving her apartment, not showing up to work, and ignoring calls from everyone. Any guilt I might have felt evaporates when I remember how she laughed when she told me she'd ruined my relationship with Kathy. Speaking of Kathy, I received a surprising message from her about 2 weeks after the incident. She'd heard about what happened through the people, and she wanted to talk. I agreed to meet her for coffee. Seeing Kathy again after 3 years was strange. She looked mostly the same. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I should have listened to you back then. I should have given you a chance to explain." I was stunned. Kathy sighed and explained that after hearing what happened with Sandra and Thomas, she remembered how adamant Sandra was about my supposed cheating, how she had all this evidence. It never sat right with her, but at the time, she was too hurt and angry to question it. Now, she realized Sandra was capable of some pretty awful things. We talked for hours. Kathy told me about her life over the past 3 years. She'd moved to a different hospital, gotten a promotion, and even dated a bit, though nothing serious. I filled her in on my life, too, avoiding any mention of how much her leaving had affected me. As we were about to leave, Kathy hesitated and asked if we could try again. Though part of me still cared for Kathy, I knew it wasn't the right thing to do. Too much had changed. I gently explained that it wasn't a good idea, and we parted ways with a hug and a promise to stay in touch, though I'm not sure if we will. Now on to Thomas. A week after the failed proposal, I received a text from him asking if we could meet. I was surprised but agreed to meet him at a local bar. When I arrived, Thomas was already there drinking a beer. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, unkempt beard. He barely looked up when I sat down. "I owe you a thank you," he said, "and a punch in the face." I braced myself, but he just sighed and took another swig of his beer. "I'm grateful you told me about Sandra," he continued. I needed to know. But man, did you have to do it like that? In front of everyone. I apologized sincerely. I was so focused on getting back at Sandra that I hadn't thought about how it would affect him. Thomas accepted my apology, and we sat in silence for a while, both lost in our thoughts. As the night wore on, Thomas shared more about his relationship with Sandra, how he'd been planning to propose for months but kept putting it off because something felt wrong. He admitted that part of him was relieved that he found out before going through with the proposal. We talked more, and Thomas even asked me about my history with Sandra. I told him everything, our parents' favoritism and what she did to my relationship with Kathy. Thomas was horrified, realizing he had no idea who Sandra really was. By the end of the night, Thomas and I had formed an unlikely friendship. We exchanged numbers and promised to keep in touch. Over the next few weeks, Thomas and I started hanging out regularly. We'd meet up for drinks or to watch a game, and we talked about everything. One night, Thomas showed up at my apartment looking agitated. "Sandra's been trying to contact me," he said. She'd been calling, texting, and even showed up at his work once, begging for another chance. I asked him what he planned to do. Thomas admitted he was conflicted. Part of him wanted to hear her out. They'd been together for 2 years, after all. But the other part of him knew he could never trust her again. She'd lied to him for months, maybe even years. The next day, Thomas met Sandra for coffee. He called me afterward to say he'd ended it for good. He deserved better, and he stood his ground, telling Sandra that her cheating wasn't a mistake. It was a choice she made repeatedly. Sandra didn't take it well. She alternated between sobbing and lashing out, even trying to blame me, saying I'd poisoned Thomas against her. But Thomas stood his ground, telling her that I had only revealed the truth. After that, Sandra spiraled even further. She started posting cryptic, attention-seeking messages on social media, clearly trying to paint herself as the victim. Our parents, predictably, ate it up and pressured me to apologize to Sandra and help her win Thomas back. When I refused, they threatened to write me out of their will. I told them to go ahead. I'd rather have my integrity than their money. This situation has made me realize just how toxic my family is. I've started seeing a therapist to work through these issues, and it's been helpful. I'm learning to set boundaries and deal with the guilt trips my parents try to lay on me. Work has been a welcome distraction. I threw myself into a big project, working long hours to keep my mind off everything. My boss noticed the extra effort and hinted at a promotion if I keep it up. As for my love life, it's been non-existent since all this went down. A few friends have tried to set me up, but I'm not ready. I need to focus on myself for a while. Maybe someday I'll be ready to trust someone again. But for now, I'm okay being on my own. Thomas seems to be doing better. He started going to the gym regularly, saying he needs to work out his frustrations. He's also signed up for cooking classes, something he'd always wanted to do but Sandra discouraged. It's good to see him focusing on himself and his own happiness. As for the future, my relationship with my parents is strained, and I don't know if it will ever recover. Sandra, from what I hear, is still a mess. She's taken a leave of absence from work, and there are rumors that she might lose her job. I feel some satisfaction at that. Thomas and I are planning a guy trip for next month. It'll be good to get away from the drama for a while. In the end, I don't regret exposing Sandra's affair. Thank you all for listening to my story. If anything significant happens, I'll update you, but for now, I'm signing off to live my life on my own terms, free from Sandra's shadow at last. Update 2. It's been a year since my last update, and I felt it was time to give you all a final update on how things have turned out. A lot has changed, and I'm finally ready to close this chapter of my life. First, let's talk about Sandra. After the exposure of her affair and the end of her relationship with Thomas, things got worse before they got better. She lost her job, partly due to her extended absence and partly due to the rumors about her personal life affecting her professional reputation. For a while, she moved back in with our parents. They coddled her, treating her like a victim and blaming me for ruining her life. But even Sandra couldn't maintain the charade forever. About 3 months after moving back home, she had a massive blowout with our parents. She finally snapped under the pressure of their expectations and confessed to everything, what she'd done to me and Kathy years ago. Our parents were shocked, forced to see Sandra for who she really was. It wasn't pretty. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of tears, and in the end, Sandra moved out. Last I heard, she's living in a small apartment on the other side of the city, working a retail job and attending therapy regularly. As for my parents, after Sandra's confession, they tried to reach out to me. At first, I ignored them, still hurt and angry about being treated as second best for years. But eventually, after encouragement from my therapist, I agreed to meet with them. It was an awkward meeting. There were apologies, tears, and uncomfortable silences. They admitted they'd been wrong about a lot of things, that they'd failed me as parents in many ways. I appreciated their honesty, but I also made it clear that it would take more than one conversation to repair our relationship. Over the past year, we've been slowly rebuilding it. It's not perfect. There are still moments when old habits resurface, but we're trying. They've started showing a genuine interest in my life and career, and I'm learning to open up to them again. It's a work in progress, but it's progress nonetheless. Now on to Thomas. We went through with that camping trip we were planning, and it was exactly what we both needed. A week in the wilderness away from cell phones and internet gave us both a chance to clear our heads. Thomas is doing well now. He threw himself into those cooking classes I mentioned, and it turns out he has a real talent for it. He's even talking about opening his own restaurant someday. As for his love life, he started dating again about 6 months ago. The new girl, Lisa, seems really nice, down-to-earth, and genuinely kind. I'm happy for him. Thomas and I are still good friends. We get together regularly for beers and to watch sports. It's nice having a friend who knows the whole story, who I can be completely honest with. He's become like a brother to me, the sibling relationship I always wished I had with Sandra. As for my career, I got that promotion my boss hinted at. The extra responsibility has been challenging, but in a good way. It's forced me to grow and push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm proud of what I've accomplished and excited about where my career is heading. Now, about my love life. After taking time to focus on myself and healing, I've started dating again. I met a woman named Nora at a work conference about 4 months ago. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of obscure sci-fi novels and terrible puns. Nora knows about my history with Sandra and Kathy. I was nervous about telling her, worried she'd think I came with too much baggage, but she's been incredibly understanding. She's helped me see that what happened wasn't my fault and that I deserve love and happiness just as much as anyone else. It's still early days, but things with Nora are going well. We're taking it slow, building a foundation of trust and open communication. As for Kathy, we've maintained a friendly but distant relationship. We'll occasionally like each other's posts on social media or exchange a quick, happy birthday text. But that's about it. I think we've both accepted that our time as a couple has passed, but I'm glad we were able to clear the air and find some closure. Sandra and I haven't spoken directly in months. The last time was at a family dinner our parents insisted on having. It was awkward and tense, with Sandra alternating between trying too hard to act normal and shooting me resentful looks. In the end, we both agreed it was better to keep our distance, at least for now. Maybe someday we'll be able to have a real conversation about everything that happened, but we're not there yet. Looking back on everything that's happened over the past 4 years, it's hard to believe how much has changed. The anger and bitterness that drove me for so long have faded. I still think Sandra's actions were terrible, and I don't regret exposing her affair. As I write this final update, I'm sitting in my new apartment. I finally moved out of that place with all the memories of Sandra's betrayal. Looking out at the sunset, Nora is coming over later for a movie night, and tomorrow I'm meeting Thomas and Lisa for brunch. Life isn't perfect, it never is, but it's good. Really good. To those of you who followed my story from the beginning, thank you. Your support, your advice, even your criticisms. All of it helped me navigate this difficult period in my life. I hope that by sharing my story, I've maybe helped some of you too. If nothing else, I hope it's shown that even when things seem darkest, there's always hope for a better tomorrow. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My ex-wife tried to manipulate the court for alimony, but the judge exposed her lies. She faced legal consequences and I blocked her. Have you ever sat in court and watched someone dig their own grave in real time? Because this is exactly what my ex-wife Jessica did. I should have known she was going to pull something. The entire divorce procedure had been a disaster. Delays, tantrums, and unnecessary filings to squander my time. We wouldn't be here if she had put half the effort into our marriage as she did in making my life horrible. But when she walked into that hearing pregnant, I nearly laughed. Not because I felt the child was mine, I knew it wasn't, but because I could see the plan coming together in her thoughts like a cheap soap opera script. Jessica was hoping that the judge would see a poor, helpless, abandoned, pregnant lady and order me to pay up. Forget the prenup, forget logic, play the compassion card to get a paycheck. I could already hear her prepared speech. Your Honor, I have a baby on the way, and I've been left with nothing. How am I supposed to survive? All while giving me side glances and waiting for me to squirm. Too awful for her. I don't play dumb and I never lose. Jessica had underestimated me. She expected me to worry, become flustered, and even accept a settlement in order to avoid looking terrible in front of the judge. But she had no idea what I knew. She had no idea that I had already found her out months ago. Jessica was awful, not only at marrying but also at lying, and she had no idea that the judge was about to ask her a question that would unravel her entire story. Jessica strode into the courtroom with a smug expression. She played it flawlessly, with one hand on her belly and the other tenderly combing her hair behind her ear, as if she wasn't about to commit legal fraud. She even sighed dramatically as she took her seat, as if the entire process had exhausted her. I did not react. I didn't have to, because unlike Jessica, I wasn't going in blind. I was ready. My lawyer, Ethan, was also present. Ethan was the type of person who smiled in court but would completely destroy you with the law. I didn't like attorneys much, but after seeing him unravel Jessica's schemes over the last few months, I had to confess, I was relieved he was on my side. Jessica, of course, had seen 3 different lawyers since we began this divorce. The one she had today was a newcomer, just out of law school and undoubtedly eager to win his first major case. I almost felt awful for him because here's the thing. Jessica had done this before. Not the pregnancy stunt, but the manipulation, the pretended grief, the "I'm just a struggling woman, Your Honor, please take pity on me" performance. Unfortunately, some people purchased it, including my mother. My mother called me about a week before the hearing. "Just settle," she urged, her voice full of tiredness. "You don't want this dragging on forever." I squeezed the bridge of my nose. "Mom, she doesn't get a penny. That is why we had a prenup. She is pregnant, though. Do you really want that on your conscience?" I nearly lost it. "This isn't my kid." Mom hesitated. "Are you sure?" I wanted to laugh. "Am I sure, Mom?" She repeatedly cheated on me. I caught her. I halted. "Besides, do you know what the worst part is? If I really felt she was my child, she wouldn't have to pull this nonsense. I would be there. I would take care of them. That's the difference between us. She plans while I take responsibilities." Mom went silent, then sighed. "I just don't want to see this get uglier." It was already ugly, but I assured her I'd handle it, which leads us back to the present. The judge entered, and the hearing began. Jessica's lawyer broke down in tears right away. "Your Honor, my client has been placed in an untenable circumstance. She's pregnant, unemployed, and struggling as a result of the emotional and financial pressure brought on by this protracted divorce." Jessica sniffled on cue. I did not even blink. Ethan waited patiently, letting the drama unfold. Then he stood up, cool and composed, prepared. "Your Honor, while we obviously sympathize with Miss Parker's plight, we need to clarify a few points before moving. First and foremost," he turned to Jessica's attorney, "who is the father of this child?" Jessica suddenly tensed. I knew the question was coming. Jessica did not notice it. She imagined the court would not scrutinize her pregnancy, that she could walk in, appear fragile, and walk out with a large check. However, legally, her pregnancy was only meaningful if I was the father. Her lawyer froze and said softly, "My client believes it is the petitioner's." I nearly laughed. Believes? Ethan did not even flinch. Does she believe, or is there proof? Jessica shuffled uneasily. The judge's gaze narrowed. Miss Parker, have you had a paternity test done? Jessica's mouth opened, closed, and then opened again. She was trapped. I just assumed. You assumed? The judge continued, unimpressed. Miss Parker, is there any evidence to suggest the petitioner is the father? Her lawyer seemed to want to die. Jessica appeared pallid. I relaxed back in my chair, enjoying the entertainment. By this point, Ethan was prepared to finish her off. Your Honor, we have strong reason to believe this child is not my client's. He showed out images from 2 months after Jessica and I split up of her on vacation with another man. Holding hands and kissing, clear evidence that she had moved on. Then came the last nail in the coffin. Ethan slid medical records across the table. Additionally, we have subpoenaed Miss Parker's recent medical records, which show that her first confirmed pregnancy test was months after she and my client had last been together. Jessica's face wrinkled. Her lawyer looked at her, understanding she hadn't told him all of this. The judge gave a long sigh and shook his head. Miss Parker, this court does not tolerate dishonesty. Given the evidence, there is no justification for financial support. The prenuptial agreement stands. You will not receive alimony or further compensation. Boom! Jessica gasped as if she had been physically struck. Your Honor, this hearing is over, the judge announced. Done. Jessica sat still, immobilized. The judge's remarks lingered in the air, but I could see it occurring in real time, her mind searching for an escape. This was not how she expected today to go. According to her account of events, she was meant to cry, seem miserable, and leave with a large monthly check. Instead, she had been publicly exposed. Her lawyer stopped staring at her. He was staring at the floor, most likely reevaluating every decision that had led him to take on this case. Meanwhile, Jessica was clutching the table's edge, as if she could somehow cling on to the remaining pieces of her plan. Then the tantrum began, Jessica's final desperate try. But Your Honor, Jessica shouted out in a high-pitched voice. This is not fair. I'm going to have a baby, and he can just walk away. The judge inhaled sharply and rubbed his temples. He was finished. Miss Parker, he stated firmly, this court does not render financial decisions based on emotional appeals. Your pregnancy has no legal bearing on this divorce until paternity is confirmed, which it has not, according to the evidence supplied. But, the judge raised his hand. Enough, Jessica snapped. She whirled in her chair, swinging her head at me. Are you really going to do this to me? To your own child? There it was, the final bet. Even after being publicly humiliated, she continued to spread mistrust. The courtroom became silent. Then I gave a leisurely, pleased, vicious smile. You really want to do this, Jessica? I leaned forward and spoke calmly. Do you want to go on record accusing me of being the father? Because we can obtain a court-ordered paternity test straight away. Her face twitched. She had nothing. She knew she didn't have anything. Everyone else in the room felt the same way at that time. This time, the judge did not bother to react. He simply turned to the clerk. The journal is done. Jessica had lost everything, but it wasn't finished yet. The hearing ended, but I wasn't done watching her break down. I went out of the courtroom with Ethan beside me, my mother following a few steps behind. I half expected Jessica to slip out quietly, but I should have known better. She stormed out after me, heels clacking, face flushed, hands shaking. You're a monster, she snarled. You let me sit there, humiliated. I gently turned, examining her up and down. I apologize, Jessica. Which part embarrassed you? The portion when you attempted to defraud the court or the part where you knew I was 3 steps ahead? Her jaw clenched. You set me up. No, sweetheart, I replied, smiling again. You've set yourself up. I just let you walk in. She appeared to want to throw something at me, but then she attempted one more card. She turned to my mother. Are you really cool with this? What did he do to me? Mom hesitated and then crossed her arms. I'm not okay with what you did to him, she told me. You tricked us all once. Never again. Jessica's lips quivered. For a brief moment, I thought she might cry. Then came the real explosion. I hope you rot, she exclaimed, moving nearer as if she intended to claw at me. I hope you... Miss Parker. The voice sounded from behind her, a severe, official tone. Jessica froze. 2 court officers had entered the hallway. Come with us, please. Her head snapped around. What? Why? The judge has recommended an inquiry into potential perjury and fraud, a police officer added. You'll need to answer some questions. Her eyes widened. Wait. No, that's not. However, they were already leading her back into the courtroom. I let out a slow breath. Ethan touched my shoulder. Well, that was satisfying. I smirked. Yeah, it was. Jessica was hauled back to the courtroom. I did not follow. I did not need to. When the court personnel dragged her away, she was no longer my problem. But I made sure to follow up. Turns out, the judge wasn't simply upset, he was making an example of her. Faking financial distress? Bad. Attempting to manipulate the court? Worse. Lying under oath? That is perjury. Her bogus claims meant she was now being investigated. The court not only dismissed her alimony request, but also noted her case for probable financial wrongdoing. She dug her own grave. Over the next few months, I learned bits and pieces. The judge fined her for wasting the court's time. Her lawyer dropped her immediately. Her attempt to apply for government assistance? Denied. It turns out they also need proof of paternity. What about the cherry on top? Her new boyfriend has dumped her. Apparently, once my lawyer showed those vacation images in court, the guy began doing the arithmetic. He discovered he wasn't the only one she had been with, and he wasn't sure he was the father anymore. I can only imagine the conversations. A few months following the trial, I received a text from an unknown number. Jessica, I hope you're happy. I glanced at it for a second before typing back, I am. Thanks for asking. I then blocked the number. I did not need to hear from her again. She'd spent years attempting to manipulate, control, and milk me for everything I owned. But now she was alone, and for the first time in a long time I was liberated. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Entitled Mom Tries to Force Me to Sell My Property for Her Daughter's College and Escalates When I Refuse. I possess $34 million worth of real estate in our hometown, including a number of homes. Years of arduous labor, prudent financial decisions, and self-sacrificing actions have led to this. For background, I'm from a modest family. Both of my parents worked in blue-collar jobs and put in a lot of effort to give my siblings and me a decent upbringing. Although it was out of their price range, they had always hoped to own their own home. Their upbringing stoked my desire and strengthened my resolve to improve my family's quality of living. My wife and I were in college when we first met. Raised by a single mother who worked several jobs to make ends meet, my wife's family had similar experiences. She became aware of the importance of ingenuity and financial caution. Both of us aspired to overcome financial difficulties and provide a secure future for our kids. Over the years, my wife and I have been buying and flipping residences nonstop. We gradually accumulated a number of properties by carefully investing and saving every cent. Every property stood for years of toil, innumerable sacrifices, and a common goal between us. I am now the father of a son and a girl, 2 amazing children. In addition to being a source of revenue, our properties serve as a testament to our commitment to providing for our kids' futures. I had no idea that an entitled woman named Emily, 40, who has been one of my tenants for a few years, would soon cause my life to take an unexpected turn. She lives in a cozy 3-bedroom home that I bought years ago, before I married my wife, after careful saving. Her daughter's high school is adjacent to the property, which is situated in a desirable area of the city. After their daughter was born, Emily's husband abruptly left her, leaving her a single mother. I gave her subsidized rent to allow her to move in after learning about her situation. I wanted her and her daughter to be able to afford to live there even though I knew I would lose out financially. The rent has stayed the same over the years, and I have never raised it. Emily had consistently paid her rent on time, making her a dependable tenant. Our relationship as landlord and tenant became informal, and we occasionally stayed in touch when she needed my assistance around the property. Her daughter was a senior in high school and getting ready to submit a college application. Emily told me 3 months ago that her daughter was admitted to a renowned out-of-state university, which is an incredible accomplishment for any high school graduate. Unfortunately, her scholarship didn't even cover 10% of her tuition at this incredibly costly university. I was concerned about how they would handle the financial challenges of higher education because I was aware of them. Emily asked to meet me one day. Without much hesitation, I accepted, assuming it had something to do with the necessary house renovations. As we sat down in the house's living room, she began by expressing her gratitude for my generosity and providing her with a large portion of the rent. She went on to tell me how much she wanted Lily, her daughter, to go to the university of her dreams. But after calculating the costs, which included accommodation, tuition, and other charges, she found that it was too much for her to manage by herself. Even after applying for financial aid, researching scholarships, and taking a part-time job in addition to her full-time employment, it was still insufficient. Perhaps she was going to ask if she could postpone paying the rent for the month, which would have made sense, so I shook my head firmly and understandingly. Rather, I was flabbergasted by Emily's astounding desire for me. She requested that I sell the house where she was residing. As she went on to explain, the property I owned and had rented out to her would bring in a healthy profit, enabling her to pay for her daughter's college education. I gave her a questioning glance. "Are you serious?" With a mixture of surprise and incredulity, I replied, "You want me to sell my property to pay for your daughter's college tuition?" Emily argued that it was her one chance to ensure her daughter's future, and her eyes begged me to do so. She said she was sure the entire property could pay for her daughter's college expenses because she had already had it evaluated. Since I couldn't possibly sell my house to pay for her daughter's tuition at a prestigious university, I asked her if she had gone insane. I informed her that I had sentimental attachment to this house and that I would not be selling it for nothing. Once more, Emily persisted, claiming that I could lend her the money and that her daughter would reimburse me after graduating. I knew how important a college education was, yet I refused to give in to her ridiculous demands. It was evident from listening to her entreaties that she was committed to finding a method to support her daughter's aspirations, even if it required proposing an absurd idea to an unfamiliar person. I calmly told Emily that I couldn't just give up the property because it was a big portion of my income. I should not be responsible for her daughter's tuition. I advised her to look into more cheap possibilities or ask family members for assistance if she was unable to pay for her daughter's tuition at the institution. Emily persisted in pressing the matter in spite of my attempts to persuade her to see the obvious, claiming that I was the only person who could assist and that selling my property and giving her the money wasn't a huge concern. I asked Emily not to come to me about this ever again, and when I realized it was not working, I left the property. I asked her to consider how ridiculous her request sounded and come up with an alternative. I had hoped that she would ultimately see her error, but Emily persisted. Throughout the following few weeks, the situation grew more intolerable as Emily's daughter was getting closer to starting college. Emily persuaded me daily to sell my property as quickly as possible. Even though I denied it, she even protested by ceasing to pay her rent. As Emily persisted in her conviction that my property would solve her financial problems, our formerly cordial relationship deteriorated and our tension increased. She believed that my refusal endangered her daughter's future and was self-serving. However, because she was refusing to pay her rent, I was losing money. We had an unbreakable pact, so I told her that if she didn't comply, I would take the case to court. It was becoming more and more obvious that her demands were endless. When Emily began bringing other people into our argument, it was a tipping point. She spoke to her neighbors and friends, accusing me of being a callous landlord who would not assist a young girl in achieving her goals. She emphasized her position as a struggling single mother and informed them that although I was quite affluent, I would not lend her the money. Those she confided in sympathized with her story. Emily used social media to further her cause, posting on Facebook that she blamed me for her daughter's failure to go to college. Rumors soon began to spread throughout our area. People understood her predicament and believed that I could help but was purposefully refusing to. I couldn't help but feel alienated in my own neighborhood. At last, my wife made the decision to contact Emily, and in order to resolve the growing dispute, she thought that open communication would be a way to resolve the growing tension in the neighborhood. But Emily wasn't in the mood for a quiet conversation. She went on a rant right away, claiming that the only way she could ensure her daughter's future was for me, the landlord, to sell the house. My wife made sincere attempts to persuade Emily, but her conviction remained unwavering. She accused us of being self-centered and claimed that we had the money to pay for her daughter's college tuition. Emily persisted in pressuring my wife to comply with her requests, and the talk went on in a monotonous loop. Her message had a visible effect on the neighborhood and the local community, portraying me as a wealthy and callous landlord who would not assist a young girl in realizing her aspirations. We were viewed with suspicion by those neighbors who had previously been friends with us. They started to think that although I was consciously refusing to do so out of selfishness, I did have the capacity to lessen her daughter's financial problems. Others who understood my background, my diligence, and the truth of my circumstances agreed with me and were equally horrified by Emily's bold request that I pay for it. They served as a reminder to me that I had to safeguard my assets and uphold the legacy I had worked so hard to establish. Every day, the community grew further polarized, with some people feeling sorry for Emily. I remained firm in my resolve to defend my property in the face of increasing pressure. I had worked hard and made sacrifices for years to earn it, and I wasn't about to give it up easily. Emily, meantime, kept stoking the fire by accusing me of being uncaring and taking advantage of her by letting her live for free. Her statements on social media grew more outspoken as she talked about her daughter's perseverance and the innumerable sacrifices she had made in order to become ready for college. Consequently, the argument progressed from a private dispute to a public discussion. My family was beginning to feel the effects of the accusations as a result of their peers repeating the untrue things they had seen on social media about me. My children started to be bullied at school. Seeing how distressed they were by this circumstance was awful. I made the decision that it was time to act at that point since Emily was affecting my children. I had remained silent, believing that she would ultimately cease, but it was time to correct the record and stand up for my morals. I contacted a lawyer that focused on tenant-landlord disputes and property disputes in order to stop Emily's defamatory efforts and preserve my reputation in the community. We quickly wrote a cease and desist letter. According to my lawyer, the cease and desist letter was the beginning of our legal struggle, and we would go all the way to court if Emily didn't change her mind. Emily was obviously shocked to receive the letter. She tried calling me on the phone, but I declined to take her calls. Then, before things got out of hand, she texted me to say she wanted to chat and make amends. She said we could have a conversation and that it was all a big misunderstanding. I responded by saying I was going to sue her. She was going to regret ever trying to play me, so I encouraged her to enjoy it and embrace herself. Emily has been adamant that I cover her daughter's tuition, damaging our family's reputation in the town and online, so I know this will be a difficult battle. My attorney is already getting ready for the case by detailing all of the unfounded charges and the damage she has done to us over the past few months. Some of my family members advised me to give her a chance to resolve the matter, as she is a single mother attempting to act in her child's best interests after learning that I was bringing her to court. So, Reddit, am I the jerk for taking the entitled mother to court rather than selling my home to cover her daughter's college expenses? Update 1. Emily sent a letter of her own containing more defamatory remarks and threats in response to our legal action. Despite being aware of her financial circumstances, she has accused me of charging exorbitant rent, which she claims prevented her from saving money for her daughter's schooling. Her willingness to deceive and go to such lengths to achieve her goals is astounding. I've already given her subsidized rent, so it's annoying to see her play the victim when her claims are unfounded. She is obviously attempting to take advantage of the situation, and I will not allow it to occur. Emily's determination to fight to the end is apparent. Although my attorney, Matthew, has reassured me that we have a solid case because her charges are unfounded, he has advised me to be ready for a drawn-out and taxing court process. I can't help but consider how rapidly things have gotten out of hand. I had no desire to find myself in a courtroom, particularly with someone who had previously occupied my land. However, there are instances when you must defend what is rightly yours and stand your ground. Even if Emily may have good reasons, I can't let her force me to sell my property. The future of my family is on the line, and I'm committed to seeing this through to the end, no matter how difficult it gets. Update 2. The legal process has formally started since my last report. It had been agonizingly painful to wait for the court date. Tension permeated the courtroom as both sides presented their cases and supporting documentation. Emily presented herself as a struggling mother who is committed to securing her daughter's future, accompanied by her lawyer. In a detailed account of financial difficulties, her lawyer emphasized how my property had been the last straw for her daughter's aspirations to enroll in a prominent out-of-state university. Emily's emotional statement was filled with emotions as she talked about the sacrifices she had made as a single mother, including the long hours she put in at work and her unshakable dedication to her daughter's achievement. She portrayed herself as a mother who had done everything she could, talking about her tenacious job hunts and multiple applications for financial aid and scholarships. Emily's lawyer persisted in portraying me as a rich, callous landlord who put money over a young girl's aspirations. During the proceedings, they suggested that I had been aware of Emily's financial difficulties, but had nevertheless taken advantage of her predicament by charging her exorbitant rent. Emily presented a family friend as a witness, claiming to have overheard a conversation between Emily and me in which I supposedly offered to sell the property to pay for her daughter's college education. This was the most shocking turn of events. When this flagrant untruth was told in court, I sat there in shock. Matthew, my lawyer, vigorously disputed this allegation, claiming that no such discussion had ever occurred. He made the deliberate decision to the witness's account. The family acquaintance who testified on the purported conversation was first subjected to cross-examination by Matthew in order to determine the witness's memory's credibility. He asked a number of specific questions in an attempt to uncover discrepancies or holes in their memory. Matthew inquired about the time, date, and place of the alleged conversation. The family friend found it difficult to respond with consistent information and was unable to provide any hard proof to back up their claim, such as emails or texts. Under examination, their testimony grew more and more dubious. Matthew provided evidence that directly refuted Emily's account, severely undermining the case's credibility. He presented documents of emails and texts that were sent back and forth between Emily and myself at the time the said agreement was allegedly made. These texts made it quite evident that she had never brought up the idea of selling the land to pay for her daughter's schooling. Rather, they proved that it was Emily who was always putting pressure on me to sell the house. Furthermore, according to testimony from a neighbor who shared a residence with Emily, Emily had been paying lower rent than any other renter in the neighborhood. To support this claim, my attorney retrieved receipts from other local tenants. Matthew continued by arguing that the neighbor's evidence and the lack of any written or electronic correspondence about the purported pledge Emily made called into question the veracity of the family friend's story. This testimony was inadmissible as hard proof. We then concentrated on demonstrating that Emily had purposefully gone to considerable measures to damage my reputation on social media, which had led to my kids being bullied. In a detailed account of Emily's communications and posts on social media, my lawyer claimed that I was a callous and uncaring landlord who did not encourage her daughter's aspirations in order to win the community's sympathy and support. These posts were rife with emotional appeals and downright lies. We pointed out that these posts were purposefully written to present her as a struggling mother who was doing everything in her ability to ensure her daughter's future. But in actuality, she was using emotional blackmail to pressure me into selling my house. Matthew then displayed screenshots of direct messages and comments left by people who had interacted with Emily's posts on social media. Because of the misleading information Emily provided, some of these local residents had developed a bad view of me. These remarks ranged from expressing empathy for her predicament to flatly accusing me of being a callous landlord, taking advantage of her circumstances. Along with the social media data, we also included witness statements from my kids, who said that Emily's posts caused them to be bullied at school. They described how classmates harassed and name-called them after echoing the untrue statements they had heard about their father on social media. My lawyer contended that the bullying my kids experienced was directly related to Emily's unfounded charges on social media. Emily's purposefully false story had a negative impact on my family's welfare in addition to harming my reputation. This evidence-based presentation clearly illustrated how Emily's social media behavior affected my kids in real life. I continue to believe that justice will be done as the legal process progresses. The truth has been revealed, and the untrue allegations against me have been exposed by the evidence that has been given thus far. In my opinion, the court will recognize the manipulation and provide a just resolution in this matter. Update 3. We prevailed. The legal proceedings have made the past month a taxing one. Unexpected turns and twists have made it feel like a roller coaster ride. It became more and more obvious that Emily's allegations were unfounded as my attorney began to provide testimony and supporting documentation. When she introduced a family acquaintance who gave a bogus statement about a pledge I had never made, her attempt to control the event failed. The legitimacy of the witnesses' assertions is seriously called into question due to the absence of hard proof and discrepancies in their testimony. The court declared the result and decided in my favor after carefully reviewing all of the testimony and supporting documentation. I was quite relieved by this and thankful that the judge saw through all of the unfounded allegations. After being convicted of defamation, Emily was mandated to compensate me for the damage she had done to my reputation. This involved paying the past month's rent as well as any further penalties. Additionally, a restraining order was granted to stop Emily from speaking negatively about my family or me in the future. My conduct and my right to defend my property were upheld by this decision. I saw Emily seated next to her attorney, looking defeated, as the court case came to an end. As I looked at her daughter, Lily, I couldn't help but think that her mother's conceit had ruined her hopes. Justice has been done, and this nightmare is now over. Everyone learned the value of standing up for themselves and not allowing the bold demands of others to undermine our moral convictions. Now that my home and our means of subsistence are safe, I can proceed with a fresh sense of confidence. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has helped me along the way thus far. My family and I endured tremendous emotional strain and hardship, but in the end, the truth won out. Update 4. 6 months have passed since my previous update. Emily has been successfully silenced by the restraining order since my court victory, and the damages she was required to pay for defamation offered some measure of comfort for the damage done to my reputation. I served Emily with an eviction notice, and she and her kid were forced to vacate. Even if their situation is still difficult, I realized I was no longer in charge of them. Although I felt a little sorry for her daughter's miseducational prospects, the truth was that Emily's bold request had placed their family in a challenging position. Everyone soon saw the full depth of Emily's lies after the court ordered her to remove her defamatory social media posts. When her daughter, Lily, unexpectedly contacted me to apologize, that was the last I heard from them. I had watched Lily grow up, and she had always been a wonderful child, but I stopped communicating with them when her mother began making unfounded accusations against me. She wanted to contact me after her mother publicly lost the case, which startled me. She expressed sincere regret in her message for her mother's actions and the resulting difficulties for her family. She acknowledged that her mother's actions had harmed both of our families and thanked us for our understanding and patience during the process. Lily also mentioned that they had moved to a more reasonably priced neighborhood and that she had made the decision to continue her study at a nearby college. She told me she had begged her mother to back off in a conversation she had with her following the conclusion of the judicial proceedings. "I'm determined to secure my own future without making any bold demands," Lily said. Because of the bogus claims made by her entitled mother, I felt sorry for her at such a young age. I told her that it was great that she was taking charge of her own life and that everyone deserves a second chance. I told her that the past was behind us and wished her well in her studies. Our lives have adapted to a new normal since Emily and her daughter left my property. The burden of the unfounded allegations and the harassment our kids endured has been removed. We intervened by getting in touch with our kids' school and addressing the bullying they experienced. At last, our family may now proceed in harmony. Now on to the next story. Story 9. After discovering my husband's autism and kitty food preference, I faced deceit and marital stress, leading to my decision to divorce. Well, it's been a lot longer than the 1-week update I promised. I could make excuses, but I won't. For those of you who don't want to read my original post, I asked for help with my husband's food preference issues, and through talking with many people on here and, ultimately, his mother, it was revealed that he was diagnosed with autism as a child. Some of the comments on my original post were not so kind. I got a lot of accusations that still hurt me. Some just make me angry, particularly the person who commented simply, "Please don't bully him. He's my goddamn husband, not a schoolyard friend, not a sibling, not a child. Infantilizing him doesn't help his case at all." Moving on, I was very upset as he had never mentioned anything to me. We've discussed all sorts of medical issues together, but his diagnosis never came up. I want to stress this. This isn't a matter of me not wanting to be married to an autistic man. This is a matter of my husband keeping something important from me and causing me a great deal of stress that could have been avoided if I was aware of his diagnosis. For example, I continuously pushed him to try new foods or attend concerts or visit loud amusement parks. I knew he wasn't particularly thrilled about any of those things, but they are all very normal couple activities that I wanted us to experience together. Had I been aware of his autism, I would have had a better understanding of how negatively these things affected him and made more of an effort to integrate things he liked with things I liked. Maybe a smaller local band or a craft fair instead of an amusement park. Anyways, that's the backstory. Read below for the update. Update 1. I confronted him about my conversation with his mother the night before our counseling appointment. I made sure to bring it up casually so I didn't become angry again. He tried to brush me off at first, saying he didn't know what I was talking about. After talking for a bit, he eventually confessed that he not only knew of the diagnosis but deliberately kept it from me. He said I was his dream, and he didn't want to do anything to ruin our perfect relationship. I explained how him keeping this from me hurt me. I explained how I could have been there to support him instead of feeling like he needed to hide. He said he wasn't ashamed of it at all. He explained that it's just not something that affects him anymore. I again explained how it affects me, but he didn't seem to care. I didn't show him the post I made, but I used some of the advice from you all to try to explain why his autism really does, in fact, still affect his life. We went to bed upset. The next day, he acted like nothing happened. We ate breakfast, he had chicken nuggets, and went about our day. I kept expecting him to bring it up, but he never did. I didn't have the nerve to bring it up again until later, at the marriage counselor's office. I spoke to the counselor so as not to seem accusing, and explained that this was an issue that bothered me. My husband actually laughed and said he assumed I'd gotten over it by now. When I explained that no, I really hadn't, he got angry with me and stormed out. The counselor tried to mediate, but it wasn't much use as my husband went to wait in the car. I was worried he'd leave without me, so I cut the meeting short. Our ride home was quiet. It wasn't until we got home that I said I was worried he was keeping other things from me too. He said he'd been reading online about how women can't understand autism, and therefore he didn't think it was important to tell me about it. I said that was the weakest excuse I'd ever heard. He then said that I'd leave him if I knew. I said if I left him, it would be because he's a liar. Apparently, he told all of our mutual friends that he'd just been diagnosed with autism, and I was considering leaving him because of it. Now many of our friends won't talk to me and act very cold when we run into each other in public. I don't know what else he's told them, but I think he told someone I cheated on him, as a fake account has been commenting horrible things about me and my supposed sexual habits on all of my Instagram posts. I keep reporting them, but then it seems like another just pops up in its place. I haven't decided if divorce is the right path. I know he's been browse incel and other bitter male-centric websites. One of his friends is a self-described incel, so I'm even more convinced that this isn't the man I married. I'm mostly just confused. I've been avoiding him at home, and it feels like more of a roommate situation at this point. He doesn't really leave his den until it's time for work, and then he's back in the den until bed. It seems like everything is messed up just from me wanting to help. I don't even know what to expect at this point, much less how to move on from here. Edit. There are so many more comments than I anticipated. I'm trying to at least read through most of them, although I think I'm past my emotional ability to reply. I'm really shocked at how overwhelmingly supportive people are. Thank you. I'm going to be discussing divorce with a lawyer. I don't know how to bring it up with him, but I'm past the point of caring. You're all right, I dread coming home to him in the evenings. I dread if he will miraculously want to talk. This isn't healthy for either of us. At the very least, some time apart would be good. That's all for now. I don't think I'll update past this as I'm already uncomfortable with how quickly this blew up, but I will be living elsewhere by the end of the month. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Wife asked me for an open relationship, then later caught her with someone at home, so I did this. Ever since I was a child, I knew I wanted to have a family of my own. I didn't like the family I grew up in, so I started to tell myself I would do better if I ever got the chance. In high school, I met the girl that would become my wife. On the nights when my stepdad felt like blaming me for the family's problems, she would meet me at the forsaken playground gazebo. She brought sleeping bags, pillows, snacks, and a tablet to watch movies on. It was lucky we lived in a southern state where sleeping outside wasn't a problem much of the year. Nothing ever bothered us in that gazebo, not even bugs. I was convinced at this point that she was my guardian angel and I would marry her after the nonsense that is high school was finally over. We got married at 18 years old. Her parents weren't thrilled, but they knew me for years at this point. They allowed us to live together in the basement of their house. Meanwhile, my wife was the sweetest, most understanding woman in the world. She truly loved me. She chose me to be her husband, so I made it my life goal to improve our lives together. We each started working. Neither of us liked our jobs very much, but it was just so we could start accumulating some money. My wife knew how to be selfless and get things done. After 10 months of working full-time, we had earned enough money to buy our own trailer home. It was considerably nicer and larger than the basement. Together, we could afford the lot rent and all the bills we acquired. My wife was lucky enough to get a job she wanted to work for the rest of her life. I, on the other hand, was diagnosed with early-onset fibromyalgia. I had intense pain all over my body that was hard to ignore. I tried working through it, and I couldn't. I got a type of pain medicine meant to block the pain receptors, but this made me feel like I was in a dream and completely unable to focus on the tasks at hand. I felt stupid and worthless. During this time, I stopped working and stayed in bed a lot. My wife was my rock and peace. She continued doing what she loved and started taking care of me when she got home. She cooked meals for me, washed my clothes, and vowed not to judge or hate me for what was happening. It was the kind of unconditional love I felt I didn't deserve but always wanted. Eventually, I felt well enough to start painting miniatures. These little game pieces and models are actually worth a lot of money when they're painted well. I never realized my knack for painting until this part of my life, when I felt trapped in my own body. It was just what I needed to boost my confidence and finances. I was able to sell these figures for 4x the amount I paid for them. My wife was extremely happy for me and encouraging. Things started to change when my wife realized how great it would be for us to start going on hikes and traveling together. I knew she was getting bored with the daily routine and needed to have some adventure, so I started taking her out on dates. Considering how I felt, I usually suggested things like restaurants, plays, darts, pottery, the cat cafe, or karaoke night at the bar on the corner. Sometimes even some of those took a lot of energy and brain power I just didn't have, but I did my best to show my wife I could be her man. 5 years after moving into the trailer, my wife didn't want to do these dates anymore. She really wanted to start going on hikes and doing things I just didn't want to do. I suggested she go without me and try to find a group of people to go with. She was all too willing to do that. It was like she was relieved that I suggested it. A few days later, she returned from what she claimed to be her first hiking trip with a group of people from an app she found. She was extremely happy when she told me about the hike, admitting that she mostly talked to one person who was extremely nice and outgoing. My wife called this friend a she, but I wondered if she was lying because of how my wife spoke to me and made eye contact. I just told her I was glad she was happy and hoped that wherever she went she would remember how much I loved her. She blushed, said she always would, and kissed me. A few days after that, my wife asked me why I never went out with any of my friends. I told her I didn't meet any friends. I was an introverted loner and stronger for it. All I needed was myself and my wife. She smiled and went quiet. The very next day, She told me her dad needed help moving some stuff out of the basement. This was the exact kind of request I hated. I agreed to do it and headed to their house knowing that it wasn't going to be pleasant. When I returned home, I could have sworn I saw a car back out of my driveway before speeding away. The timing was just close enough that I could see it from far away. I entered the house and asked my wife who was just here. She froze in her tracks, looking like a deer in the headlights. She slowly told me that no one was here. It was just her. I looked around and smelled the air, like I was some kind of hound. My wife's face was turning red even though her body didn't move. I searched the house and our bedroom for any clues while she remained silent. It was weird. I found half a footprint by the front door, like someone's shoes were wet and they stepped on the rug before taking them off. The shoe print didn't look like ours, but I couldn't rule it out. I sat on our bed and just had a gut feeling that something was wrong. My wife appeared in the doorway with her arms crossed. She called me Sherlock when she asked if I found anything. I walked straight to her and tried to playfully pull her into the bed with me, but she refused, claiming she had to make dinner. 1 month later, my wife had gone on 2 more hiking trips. She took selfies with the group and supposedly pointed out the girl she'd been getting along with. Even though my wife had tried to suggest I get out of the house too, I didn't, unless it was with her. I didn't feel right about leaving her in the house alone. I was painting in the spare room one evening, expecting my wife to get home much later. I felt a very faint thud on the floor. It was so faint that I thought it might have been the refrigerator or AC kicking on. A few minutes later, I had a terrible urge to walk around the house. I went into the living room, looked out the window and didn't see my wife's car in the driveway. I got a drink from the kitchen and as soon as I started to head back to the spare room, I heard something. I couldn't tell what it was, but I went to our bedroom door and found that it was locked. I was extremely confused because you can only lock the door from the inside. I got a lockpick and popped it open, which is when I heard my wife's worried voice. The door swung open and I saw a naked man I didn't recognize get off my wife, grab his clothes, and leap out the open window. My wife was half covering herself with blankets, looking at me like a lost puppy. She started saying how sorry she was, but as soon as I started losing my mind asking her what the heck I just saw, she got defensive. She said I wasn't an adventurous or active man, which really bothered her. With my voice cracking, I asked her if that gave her a right to cheat on me, to break our vows in our own bedroom while I was in the other end of the house. She was crying hysterically, defending herself while also admitting she was wrong. My vision started to spin and I passed out. When I came to, she was crying over me. I told her to leave. She said she couldn't because she was my wife. I told her she wasn't anymore, so she went to call her mom. When her mom realized what happened, she told her daughter how despicable she was. I knew she was being lectured because my wife couldn't get a word in. She was whining beside herself until her mom showed up at my house. She asked me if I was going to divorce her daughter the way she deserved, and I said yes. She immediately went to start grabbing her essentials so she could move out. My wife was just screaming. She wouldn't stop saying sorry and begging me for another chance. I barely had the strength to look at her and tell her how much she broke me. I didn't feel the intense love I had built for her over the years. It was immediately gone, leaving a gaping metaphorical hole. She said she felt the same hole and that we could fill it by staying together and refusing to give up on our marriage. I told her she broke it and it was shattered. There's no sense in keeping tiny, itty-bitty pieces of a shattered relationship. She didn't agree with my metaphor. She believed we could stay together, but only because she was the one that messed up. If it was me that would have messed up, she would have refused to forgive me. She admitted that in court when the judge asked her how she'd feel if it was the other way around. I was not ordered to pay alimony and I got to keep my house. The joke's on her because I started making a crazy amount of money every month with my miniature painting. I invented my own group strategy game which sold for over 6 figures. It's been years and my wife is still single, living in the basement we started out in. I've remarried and handled my marriage in the same way I did my first one, except this time my wife is actually worth it. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Named my daughter Annabelle after my husband's grandmother, who raised him then found out that it was also the name of my dad's affair partner. I 26F. Just gave birth to my daughter, Annabelle. I didn't announce it beforehand because in the past, one of my family members stole a baby name and it created a lot of drama. My mom wanted to know, but I was adamant about keeping it a secret. My mom and dad were in the room when I gave birth, and when it was time for me to sign the birth certificate, my mom asked for the name and I told her Annabelle. Her face went pale and my dad didn't look too happy, but he said he loved the name. My mom left a few minutes later, claiming she didn't feel well. She said she'll come over in a few days to help with a baby. Now, I'm at home with the baby, and my mom hasn't talked to me that much. We used to talk every day, so I was confused by this sudden behavior. My sister, Emily, lives with mom still, so I called her over to talk. When she got to my house, she explained how she overheard dad and mom arguing because about 10 years ago, dad had an affair with a coworker named Annabelle. Mom hasn't been talking to him and he's been trying to get her to talk. I guess dad, realizing that Emily had come over, decided to come over himself. He asked if there is any way that I can change Annabelle's name. I asked him why, to see if he'll tell me the truth, and he did. He admitted to the affair. He begged mom not to leave him, and she stayed, but just hearing that name had always put her in a bad headspace. I told him I can't and that Annabelle was the name of my husband's grandmother who helped raise him. My dad begged and pleaded for me to change it, saying mom was in the middle of packing her bags and heading to her sister's house. I told him I won't change her name and that it means so much to me and my husband. He began to raise his voice, and immediately my sister yelled back and told him to get the hell out. She told him not to stress me out about a mess he created. He left immediately. I'm not changing my baby's name, but I feel like this is tearing the family apart. What should I do? Small edit. Annabelle isn't her real name. Her real name only has 3 letters, so a nickname based off her name wouldn't be possible, and a lot of you suggested to change her first name to her middle name, but her middle name is my mom's name and I don't want to change that. Additional info. Comment 1. OP, on changing her baby's name for her parents' sakes, and it shouldn't be a problem. OP. It really is, though. My husband's mom had him at a really young age, so his grandma raised him. She recently passed away, so this is our way to honor her. And this is a baby we've been trying for. So for the past 6 months we've been calling her Annabelle. In this case, my husband's feelings matter more than my mother's because this is his child too. My husband and I talked about it, and as much as this hurts my mom, his grandma was Superwoman. I can't hurt my husband because my dad hurt my mom. My dad needs to fix it, not me. Comment 2. You should have talked to your mom beforehand, so she could have given her daughter a different name. OP. I didn't know until 4 days later. Paperwork is already filed, and now it will cost to change the name. Comment 3. OP. Should change names to avoid the trauma for all involved. OP. This might sound selfish, but why does a bad situation take precedence over a good situation? I get my mom is hurt, but what about my husband's grandmother, who sacrificed years, money, and time for a child that wasn't hers? I think the good outweighs the bad in this situation. It's my husband's child too. His grandma is just as important as my mom in the situation. Comment 4. Has OOP talked with her mother about the associated name? OP. Not about this. I just found this out this morning, but for the past few days, it's been just quick 3-minute conversations. I knew something was bothering her. I just didn't know what it was until today. Update 1. September 27th, 2024. So my sister went over to my aunt's house to talk to my mom about what happened. My mom then came to my house to talk. She broke down, saying how sorry she is for being distant and that it was wrong not to communicate with us about what was happening. She said while the name did shock her at first, she knew how much Annabelle meant to my husband and that she'll never do anything to discredit the work she put into raising him. I asked why she didn't tell us about the affair. She said because she knew that she was mentally too weak to leave and the last thing she wanted was to show us it's okay to stay with a man who cheated on you. I asked if she planned on leaving Dad and she said she doesn't know. She had admitted that she never got over the affair and is mad at herself for ruining the moment her granddaughter was born. I told her, is there a nickname that she wants to call her by? And she said no and that she wants to honor the memory of Annabelle's great-grandmother. We hugged it out and talked, so I think everything is okay. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Why can't OP reject her husband's name choice for their daughter? She has the rights to decide on the name. OP. How am I selfish if my husband wanted to honor his grandmother? My husband's grandmother is essentially his mother. It's not from his mouth, although he didn't want to change it. He was telling me it was probably for the best. My husband does not control me or control how I think. Comment 2. Yeah, this is not fixed. She's saying things but not feeling them yet. And it's going to seriously hit the fan if she winds up divorced or your sister starts harping on her to divorce because she will 100% associate your kid with her life falling apart. OP. I get this is a possibility, but I'm pretty sure no one will blame my child. My father will 100% be responsible. Even my aunt told her that the baby is innocent and that nobody is to blame but my dad. My mom looks up to my aunt and usually listens to her advice. I'm pretty sure my aunt was pushing for her to start a divorce, so it's most likely going to happen. Comment 3. OP, on how she will explain to her daughter about her name when she's older. OP. They will hear the story about the women who stepped up to take care of her father because his mother was on drugs. They will hear the story about how she saved her grandson from suicide. They will hear the story about how she worked 2 jobs to save up for his college fund. She will hear the story about how her great-grandmother had to make multiple sacrifices to make it to every football and baseball game. I think that trumps my dad's affair partner. Comment 4. Going LC with her father. OP. The thing is, I've never seen my dad act like that, so I'm going to go no contact until Annabelle is older and I'm healing from the birth. Then I'll see where he's at, and if he still blames me, then I'm going NC permanently. Update 2. September 29th, 2024. So I'm actually going to separate myself from my mom and my dad. My mom said she was going to get couples counseling as well as therapy for herself. I thought that was good. I guess my dad read somewhere that it's best to completely be honest about the situation if he wants to move on. My dad is a science teacher at a high school, so Annabelle wasn't actually a coworker, but a student. He taught her as a freshman and had her in his AP class as a senior. She graduated at 17, and they added each other on Facebook and things went from there. I guess I asked my mom if she knew Annabelle was a student and not a coworker. She broke down and admitted that she did. I asked her how can she be with someone like that? She didn't answer me. My sister was disgusted by him and cursed him out, calling him a child lover. She said she would never talk to him again. I agreed with her and told my mom that I can't allow my kids around her if she thought that my dad's behavior was okay. My dad said that Annabelle was an adult and that it was a mistake what happened between them. He then said it was a mistake to be open about the situation if it was only going to make things worse. My sister moved in with me, which I don't mind because the house has plenty of room. My dad and mom have been blowing up our phones, but I can't talk to either of them right now. Now on to the next story. Story 12. My girlfriend wants me to attend her company Christmas party, where I'll have to socialize with 2 guys she had sex with, but they still make jokes about it and call her names. My M31 girlfriend, F27, of roughly 2.5 years' work are planning their usual annual company Christmas party, where employees and their partners/spouses are invited to attend for an overnight stay, meal, party, open bar, etc. Partners are optional but supposedly preferred. I've never been to the previous events due to a work commitment last year, and the year prior we were still quite a new couple. She works for a large nationwide recruitment agency, and each year a different city's office hosts, and those not from that region normally stay in a fancy hotel booked by the company. They are in the process of confirming the total number of guests, and she'd like me to go. As a heads up, we are very open and communicate well, I'd say. She's told me that prior to us dating, on her first work's Christmas party after a few drinks, she went to an after-party in one of the guys' hotel rooms and engaged in a threesome with 2 dudes from her office as a bit of a bucket list experience. After thinking about it, I've said to her I'd rather I give it a miss, but I'm totally happy for her to go on her own. She's told me it's important to her from a career perspective, as it's good for her image to get to meet in person with people she works with from other regions and can socialize with the senior management, and that nearly everyone's partners attend. We have since been arguing all last week, and I have been accused of not supporting her career as I've never attended her previous work events, being immature and shaming her. I really honestly don't think any of this. It was something she'd done prior to meeting me. We do hold differing views on sex, as for me it has always been something special, where she views sex as something that's just a bit of fun. This isn't an issue and has actually been good for us as we've learned a lot from each other. I'm even comfortable with the fact she still works alongside these two guys. I know she has had a lot more sexual partners than me, but as she has always viewed casual sex when she was single as a bit of fun, and I know deep down it wasn't meaningful, accepting a sexual history is one thing. People are entitled to a sex life, I'm cool with that, the past is the past. But this feels different as it feels like the present, and socializing at the same party with my girlfriend and the two males that have been intimate with her is a different task. It makes me awkward and uncomfortable. I thought it would be easier to say I'm not attending. Having asked if others at her work knew, she said yes, as one or both of the guys did spread rumors afterwards, and also has been office banter and nicknames about it. She said it doesn't bother her. She is confident and the type that would own it. The place gives me finance bro vibes. The thought of shaking hands, making small talk, and sharing a table for a meal with guys who have had sex with my girlfriend is difficult. For context, we are in a good place, rarely argue, and have recently been talking about marriage, having kids, etc., and really have a great relationship all around and don't want to do anything that would harm her or our relationship or career. I posted about my situation on another subreddit, but feel like here might be more helpful for me. Turns out strangers on the internet are actually very helpful. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Honestly, I do think this is something you need to work through. Maybe you can avoid going this year, but if she stays with this company, at some point her fiancé or husband's refusal to ever go to a work event is going to impact her reputation. I think it's better for you to just get it over with and see that it's really more something you've built up in your head. Perhaps it would help if you tried not thinking of it as socializing. These kinds of events are essentially mandatory for her, and your behavior or refusal to show up does reflect on her. She is not asking you to be best friends with these men. Just be polite in a professional setting for a short time. OP, thanks for your response. I do understand not attending prior or future events as a spouse is bad for her reputation, although I feel like the previous were valid reasons. Her being honest about it is appreciated, but I'm just trying to get over the social awkwardness that I have built up in my head. Comment 2. She was a consenting partner in that threesome. By being upset or unwilling to go to a place because of the other two partners, you are undermining her choice and agency as a person. What if you wanted her to attend at a wedding where your ex was present? It's not the sexual partner, it's the fact it was a threesome, and you are kind of making moral judgments, plus also afraid the two guys will think they have something over on you, is that correct? OP. Well, yeah, I'd say you're mostly right. However, it's not the act of her choosing to be part of a threesome itself I'm judging. She was single at that time. It's just more difficult because it was a threesome. There are just numerically more ex-sexual partners to be around. That's intimidating. I don't know if it's me feeling there's something over me that makes me nervous. I can accept her past, and ultimately she's my girlfriend now. It's the attitude those two guys hold that could be a problem, as she's told me they spread gossip of her encounter to others in the company and use shit-shaming type nicknames for her when they think she's not around. I'd feel uncomfortable and probably emasculated to hear that said about her whilst I was there. Update 1. October 3rd, 2024. Hi everyone. Since there was a few update me comments on the original post and I had a bit of spare time, I thought I could provide an update on the situation I posted about a while back. First of all, I really appreciate all the advice and feedback I received, both positive and negative. It gave me a lot to think about, and it also gave me the ability to structure some important conversations between my girlfriend and I. To summarize the original post, my girlfriend, F27, and I, M31, have been together for nearly 3 years. She invited me to her company's annual getaway Christmas party this year, which would involve me needing to be socializing with coworkers, including 2 guys she had a threesome with as a one-off before we were dating. I wasn't uncomfortable with her sexual history itself, but I felt awkward about attending the party and being in the same table/event with these guys, especially since they still sometimes joke about it and the use of what I consider disrespectful nicknames for her. On top of that, I was worried there was a possibility I could end up being the butt of these jokes too, which made the idea of attending feel even more uncomfortable. I initially declined to go, which led to some tension and an argument between us. One point I just wanted to clarify, based on some of the comments and DMs, is that I'm not ashamed of her past at all. Before we started dating, I knew due to being part of an overlapping social group she had a sex-positive outlook, and she was open about the fact that she had been with around 50 guys. That was never an issue for me. We may well have different experiences, as I've only been with 3 long-term GFs prior, but it wasn't something that held me back from pursuing and starting a relationship with her, and not something that has ever been an issue. What made this situation feel different was that I'd be in a room, possibly sat at the same table for dinner, with people who are still actively referencing the past experience. I've never had to deal with that face-to-face, and the idea of those same people making jokes with me in the room, or even about me, made the situation feel more socially uncomfortable. Update 2. After some deep conversations and listening to each other's point of view, my girlfriend helped me understand her perspective more clearly. She expressed that being the only person from her office without a partner would make her feel awkward and isolated, and possibly lacking social support during the event. She was also surprised and somewhat upset when I changed my mind about attending, as it raised a small doubt that I was viewing this with the idea of shaming her. We also had a constructive conversation around her views on sex positivity. Her confidence in celebrating that part of her life has helped me have a different perspective. She reassured me that any teasing and nicknames at work don't bother her. So why should it bother me? Any terms like shit should not be seen as insults, instead something to be proud of, and offer her an ability to own and reclaim a woman's sexuality without shame, especially since men involved in stuff like that are held to a different standard than her. If she can be proud of herself while confidently standing by her choices, then I realized I should wholeheartedly support that as well. Anyway, I've decided to go to the event. I still have some reservations, but I realize it's important to show my support in her work life. I trust her, and if she's comfortable in that environment, I want to be too. At the end of the day, I'm happy of how open and unapologetic she is about her views, and I don't want to let my discomfort or something as trivial as the possibility of being the target of jokes get in the way of supporting her fully. We've had some great discussions about kink, sex, relationships, women, and society that have only made our relationship stronger. Thanks again for all the advice. It's been a huge help. Comment where OP has replied. Comment 1. What kind of shit would talk about that encounter at work? If you are going to be with her long-term, you will need to be at these types of events. If those two make any comments, the easiest is to act like you didn't hear it. Any more than that, you could quip about how she mentioned how shitty they were in bed, or say how you look forward to sharing the story with their next girlfriend. Whatever you do, you cannot appear like you were fazed by it. OP. From what I know, the company is very much a finance bro vibes, and these guys come across as bragging douchebags. But just because they view something like this the way they do doesn't mean everyone else should. They should be held to the same standard as her for doing the same thing. Now on to the next story. Story 13. My mother and sister crashed my wedding, insisting I give up my fiancé because they believed he was perfect for my sister, not me. Hello, everyone. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I'm furious. I'm very confident this will be my last conversation with my family, and I was wondering if you would do the same if you were in my situation. The main characters in this narrative include: I am 25 years old and female. My sister, Ellie, is 23 years old and female. My mother is 47 years old and female. Growing up, my mother was considerably closer to Ellie than to me. I think it was because I was far more manly than either of them. I had diverse interests and goals. I'd been playing soccer since middle school, and as I got older, I became interested in other sports such as volleyball and swimming. I eventually won a soccer scholarship, allowing me to attend a university 4 states away. While I was away at university, Ellie decided she did not want anything to do with further education. She dropped out of high school and was proud of it. She had been more concerned with romantic affairs than academics since her early high school years. Somewhere along the way, my mother encouraged her to keep doing this. In my mother's opinion, the finest thing a girl can do is have multiple men fawning over her, because life is easier with admirers than when you settle down with just one person. My parents split up due to my mother's strong beliefs about what a guy should be and how he should behave. My father was emotionally mature and available, which she found overwhelming. When they parted, I was the only one who remained in contact with my father. Ellie, on the other hand, believed all Mom had told her. She concluded Dad was a wuss, and that she'd be better off without him around. She stated he wasn't much of a father to us anyway. I cannot say I agree with her. I tried to sway her mind about our father, but she had no desire in that relationship. In her opinion, he had dug his grave by deciding to burden Mom with his emotional needs. Her weird beliefs about masculinity and the male mindset troubled me. Deep down, I suspected she was developing a corrosive, nearly man-hating worldview as she grew older. While Ellie was bouncing from one romantic connection to the next, I was working on my undergraduate degree. I had a lot on my plate balancing my studies and my sports scholarship, so I simply didn't have time to date. That fact concerned Ellie and Mom tremendously. In their perspective, what do I value if I can't marry someone wealthy? It was weird hearing them utter those things. My mother even went so far as to give me bad dating advice, including manipulative tactics. How I should target men's weak points, console them, and then use it as power to dominate them. She claimed that I needed to control someone in order for them to stay with me, select me, or like me. Her statements seemed so weird to me. Her advice was very strange. I thanked her for her advice but never followed it. When I was 22, I met someone through my master's program. We began dating, and when I was 24, we became engaged. Because of my mother's weird beliefs about what a woman must do to keep a man, I believed it would be best to conceal my boyfriend's presence until we were engaged. My father, however, was completely aware of my relationship. He had met my fiancée several times before our engagement. After alerting my father of our engagement, I felt it was time to present my fiancée to my mother, so I did. The meeting did not proceed as anticipated. When I initially brought him home, my mother was overjoyed, but not because he was my fiancé. Oh no. Mom did not even allow me to finish introducing him. I had hardly mentioned his name when she interrupted and stated that I had finally come around as a sister because he was the ideal man for Ellie. She said I should have told her and Ellie about him sooner. I was too astonished to speak. So was my fiancé. We both sat there watching Ellie parade around in tight clothing, not even attempting to conceal the fact that I was right there. This was incredibly unacceptable behavior even if my fiancé was not my fiancé and was simply a buddy. After 5 minutes of watching this drama develop, I snapped out of my amazement and resolved to correct the record. I introduced him as my fiancé and showed them my ring, and for once, I'd appreciate it if you cared about my happiness rather than Ellie's. Hearing this, my mother finally took a good look at my fiancé's face. After glancing at him for a few moments, she announced that she could not offer her blessing to this marriage. I couldn't believe what I heard. I was shocked. I got hurt. I was experiencing too many emotions at once. Instead of disputing, I accepted her opinion, grabbed my fiancé's hand, and left the house. Later, my fiancé asked if I still wanted to marry him, knowing how important my mother's comments were to me. I said, "I love you. I see a future with you, and if I want to marry, it will be with you and no one else." With that, we continued with our wedding planning. After nearly 2 months of planning, my wedding day finally arrived. I was in my wedding gown, feeling on top of the world. Everything was perfect. My father came to escort me down the aisle, but then a disturbance. My mother and Ellie barged in, disregarding the security. Ellie was wearing a wedding gown that had belonged to my mother. My mother called out to me, asking that I cancel the wedding. She said, "You should not marry your fiancé." And why? Because Ellie deserves it more than I do. My mother believed Ellie deserved a good-paying husband who could care for her while she pursued her dream of becoming a homemaker. Unlike me, unlike the masculine woman that I am. My mother suggested that the outfit would look better on Ellie because she has developed biceps and triceps, and the only thing preventing her from being a male is a lack of facial hair. Mom asked my fiancé, "What type of woman do you want in your arms? A lady who is obedient or a woman who would rather spend her leisure time chasing a ball?" It wounded, embarrassed, and humiliated me to hear such comments from my own mother. I could not even defend myself. My mother viewed my silence as a show of submission and ordered me to step down from the altar, allowing Ellie to take my place. That's when my fiancé stretched out and took my hand. He turned to my mother and urged her to go, as she and Ellie were not welcome here. He stated he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me, a lady he could play soccer with, rather than Ellie, whom he didn't know and didn't like. Mom's face fell. She turned to me and asked me to say something. All I could say was, "Leave." My mother walked out of the event with a nasty smile on her face, barely covering her disdain for me. Ellie trailed behind her, clearly unhappy. I could barely concentrate on the ceremony after that. The wedding was postponed for half an hour while I attempted to settle myself. Once I felt better, I was finally able to marry the love of my life. When I was alone after the wedding, I burst into tears. I don't understand why my mother did what she did. Is it improper for me to want to marry despite being a manly person? I do not comprehend. Update 1. Hello, everyone. Thank you for all your kind sentiments in my DMs and comments. I haven't had time to respond to everyone, but I assure you that I have read them all, and I thank you all for taking the time to read my tale. Yes, my mother and I were never close due to my passion for athletics. Ellie and Mom look a lot more alike than I do. I resemble my father. After my parents parted, Mom attempted to poison us against Dad. She succeeded with Ellie but not with me. Mom also saw Dad was present during the ceremony, which I don't think she was pleased about. I've received a few texts from my mother, but I haven't had the confidence to open them. Update 2. I opened the messages. My mother laments the fact that I married someone who should have been perfect for Ellie. In her perspective, I ruined Ellie's chance to live the dream life she had always desired by marrying him. I'm not sure why she just cares about Ellie's happiness, not mine. When I challenged my mother about this, she responded, "I did not raise you to be such a hateful person who enjoys being envious of others." I couldn't make much sense of what she said, but I knew it was meant to harm me. I had no reason to sit and suffer what she was spewing at me, so I chose to block her. I've never considered taking such dramatic measures, however, standing where I am today, I believe that is the best course of action. I have temporarily blocked my mother. Update 3. Since I blocked my mother, Ellie has decided to trash me on the internet. She made multiple posts portraying me as the villain who took her lover, which was not the case. Fortunately, my father and his side of the family were aware of my continuous relationship with my husband, so they did not accept her words. My mother's side of the family was a very different story, but that's okay. I am not too concerned about it. I've blocked her as well, and I have no plans to unblock her. Mom's family contacted me, and I described the issue to several of them. Those who believed me were unblocked, while those who did not believe me were blocked. I have no regrets, and that is it. I want to have a good life with my husband, and I'm not going to allow my toxic family to spoil it. Wow, your mother has some very antiquated and harmful values. You deserve so much more. I can't comprehend why she thought it was right to do what she did. You are NTA for blocking her, by the way. NTA. You should block your mother, Ellie, and anyone else who believes what they did is acceptable, because it is not at all. Now on to the next story. Story 14. My wife will not shut up, and I'm not sure I can take it that much longer. Is it possible for that to be a reason to leave? I'm not sure if I should have posted this on AIT instead, but here goes. My wife will not shut up. I'm not talking about your usual chatty Cathy. I mean, she almost literally will not shut up. She will talk continuously from the moment she knows I'm within earshot, not just in the same room. I mean, as soon as it's reasonable to assume that I can hear her, she will not stop talking until I'm gone, and sometimes not even then. On more than one occasion, I've gone into the bathroom, turned on the loud exhaust fan, taken a leisurely dump, and then returned to hear her cheerfully engaged in the same conversation she was enjoying before I went in. She also refuses to use the exhaust fan while she's in the restroom because it would prevent her from being heard. So I get to hear all the bathroom noises on top of whatever Homeric epic about her friend's cousin's girlfriend's hairdresser she's blathering on about. I once drove from Tampa, Florida to Chicago, Illinois with her before we were married. I'm such an idiot. Without saying more than 10 sentences, She did not stop talking the entire way. The entire way. Turn on a show I like? That's not a problem. She'll happily turn the volume down so it doesn't get in the way. Having sex? That's the perfect time to tell me about how Olivia Newton-John still has the leather pants she wore in Greece. And she, brace yourself, still fits in them. Really. Needless to say, we don't go to the movies ever. I've been shushed out of too many theaters. I get it. She grew up in a huge Italian Catholic family in the Bronx. If you don't talk loud and constantly, you don't get to talk at all. I, on the other hand, grew up in a Scandinavian family with 2 children. To this day, I'm not sure we ever had a conversation in our house. I actually often wonder if that's what made me attractive to her. I was taught to politely listen to people and then wait for them to finish before replying. She never finishes or takes a breath, it sometimes seems. So to her, I'm paying rapt attention to her no matter how much she talks. That's not true, though. Another difference between people of Swedish heritage is that we don't use filler words for acknowledgement. Other than the motena, useful on every occasion, we're pretty much silent when we listen to others. No aha or yeah or OMG needed. A nod of the head every 10 minutes or so is all you need to convey your attentiveness. I think it has a lot to do with living in the frigid north. You keep your mouth open as much as my wife does and your teeth are going to shatter from the cold. To her, that's like being in the room with a dead person. She's always stopping to ask, "Are you even listening?" Or say, "You never pay attention to me?" Or even quiz me with, "What did I just say?" I've become an expert at storing the last 2 to 4 words she says and pairing them back at her. She'll be like, blah, 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 and then she told him she wasn't taking that kind of crap anymore. And I'll go, "That kind of crap?" As if I had any idea what kind of crap it was or who it was that wouldn't take it anymore. And she'll say, "Yeah," and think I've been paying attention the whole time. I joke about it a lot, but it's actually getting to the point where it's a problem. Our son is 7 years old, and he has developed a pronounced stutter because she interrupts him constantly. Growing up in her house, if anyone paused even for a millisecond, that was grounds for talking over them, and you talked loud so they didn't finish. My son apparently inherited some of my less staccato speech patterns, and she basically just uses that to interrupt and take over for the conversation. It got so bad that he started automatically stopping and restarting words even when not being interrupted. I didn't know that was considered a stutter until we went to one of those parent-teacher night things, and a teacher listened to my wife and then turned to me and said, "Well, at least now I know why Josh has a stutter." Just like that. She's failed at least one job interview because of this. I know because I lined it up with a business acquaintance myself. He called me up and said, "Sorry," but he just couldn't take being in the same room with her because she wouldn't stop talking. We rarely are invited for a second couple's date. She monopolizes the conversation every time we go out with other people. Who wants more than one dose of that? You're probably wondering, well, have you told her about this? Yes, many times. Sometimes jokingly, sometimes with utter seriousness. The reactions vary from anger. Talks louder, higher, faster, and uses lots more swear words, to tears. She's the only person I know who can carry on a totally unrelated conversation while sobbing hysterically. The one thing that doesn't happen is her talking any less. I try not to let it get to me. She's a very affectionate woman, loves me to death, mother of my child, pretty as the day we met, prettier even. We still get plenty of alone time. Granted, she won't shut up while we're doing it, but I'm pretty busy so I don't really notice as much. But it does get to me. The selfish and shows a lack of self-awareness. There's a time and a place for enthusiastic conversation, and they're not always and everywhere. I know the answer to the problem. I have to talk back. In effect, the only thing that possibly could shut her up is for me to do the same thing as she does. I would have to interrupt at the slightest pause. I would have to talk louder, yelling if necessary, when she tries to interrupt me. I would have to learn to use Italian hand gestures to emphasize my points and chop off her objections. But I'm not Italian. I'm a waspy, pale dude who grew up in a household that would have made a mortuary sound like a middle school cafeteria. 12 years of this has finally pushed me to the brink. I'm not sure I can take it that much longer. I'm just not sure if I could get a word in to tell the judge why I'm there in his divorce court. My wife wouldn't let me. TLR, wife will not shut up. Is that reasonable grounds for leaving her? Edit. Obligatory Reddit. OMG. I had no idea this would blow up. Which is true. I thought maybe a couple of people would just call me and that would be it. But RIP inbox. It was nice to know you. So in the interest of not replying to every comment, I will try to address some of the common ones and answer some of the questions I saw popping up multiple times. Also, thanks for the often hilarious advice. Q1. Is this BS? Implied. A 1. No, it's all mostly true. I admit to some embellishment for dramatic, comedic effect, though. The bit about the leather pants is representative, not an actual quote. Not from Sexy Times, anyway. She probably mentioned it at some point, though. Q2. Why didn't you run away screaming before you got married? Sub-question. Was OP's wife hot? A 2. Yes. She is hot and funny and vivacious. Also, I really was a Nordic silent bear. Thanks you /Sarah_Fire. My wife drew me out of my shell, and if I'm brutally honest with myself, when you're young and getting laid on the regular, a lot of things don't seem all that terrible. Damn you, penis, this is all your fault. Q3. Did your kid really develop a stutter because of this? A 3. Medically speaking, I cannot state this with 100% certainty. The cause was never formally diagnosed. However, I watched it happen firsthand. I'm not a qualified speech therapist, but I think it was a reasonable conclusion to draw based on the observations I made. I'd welcome a dissenting opinion from an actual professional, though if only to salve my conscience. Q4. Aren't you really the one responsible for your kid's stutter? After all, you did nothing to stop it. A 4. Guilty, and I feel utterly like about it all the time. For the record, I did bring it up lots of times, even to the point of getting into arguments about it and speaking harshly to my wife when she interrupted my son. But I think by the time I realized it was happening, most of the damage was done, and anything I could do was more expressing my anger about it than actually making an effective change. All the rest of this weirdly long post is just ranting. If there's an actual justification for leaving, this is it, and I'm deathly afraid that she'll get full custody and just make it worse or even irreparable. Q5. Is it because she's XYZ OCD, insecure, autistic, mentally ill? A 5. I don't think so, although I've always sensed an overwhelming need for attention. I see it in her family dynamic and that all of her many siblings were in constant competition for their parents' attention and affection. Q6. Have you tried counseling? A 6. No. Probably should have. But I know her well enough that even mentioning it would shatter her. It's bizarre. Sorry that I can't bring myself to do a lot of things people have suggested, and believe me, I've probably thought of all of them because they just seem too cruel to me. And yet, I'm seriously considering divorce. I realize the contradiction there. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.